It is how you raise a kid regardless of the gender. Girls deserve to shine. It is how you raise a kid regardless of the gender. Girls deserve to shine. It is how you raise a kid regardless of the gender. Girls deserve to shine.
Ladies and gentlemen, this morning we're going to have lots of activities. We will have a talk show with key speakers to discuss whether we have a son or a daughter and gender equality. And of course, many men may want to express their romanticism during match the age, but I'm wondering who will have the courage to say, I won't force you to have a son. If somebody say that to you, it's kind of wonderful, because many men today still have the idea that we must have a son whatsoever. So if during the match the 8 and your boyfriend tells you that we only need a happy family, it doesn't matter whether we have a son or not. The dialogue this morning is sponsored by Ministry of Health and UNFPA and the government of Norway, and the dialogue is streamed live on fan page not only of the morning coffee show of VTV3 but also on the YouTube channel of UNFPA Viet Nam, and there are many other participants joining us on Zoom from Quảng Bình, Quảng Ninh, Bắc Giang, Hưng Yên, Nghệ An, Bến Tre and Vũng Tàu. In Hanoi this morning it's a bit rainy, but I am pleased that many participants have managed to join us. Not sure about the weather elsewhere. Could you please share with me in the live stream function? So even if the weather doesn't support travel, you may stay at home and follow us on the live stream. Um, Before we start the dialogue, let's before we start the dialogue, let's have a quick chat with the speakers. May I invite Madam Nguyễn Văn Anh, Director of CISAGA. Good morning. Thank you very much for your time and for talking to our audience. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Nguyễn Văn Anh, Director of CISAGA. If you follow her on the internet, Van Anh is among 150 influential women in Vietnam, as voted by Forbes. She has been recognized for her contribution to the promotion of gender equality in Vietnam. What will you speak about today? I will talk about what Saga has done together with other organizations to address the issue of gender equality. And as you know, gender equality includes so many things. For example, the ideas of girls deserve to shine, not just boy. But more importantly, we want to emphasize that everyone, irrespective of their gender, can contribute to a better society. So, may I ask how we can control SIB imbalance as a result of GBSS? As you understand, the population should grow and the sex ratio should grow by a natural ratio. But when people have interventions to have either a boy or a girl in any forms, that will make the SIB unnatural, and then it will create lots of complexities and social problems later on. So when you resort to GBSS, gender bias sex selection, and then the children cannot live a happy life. So as somebody who spent lots of time in their life to promote gender equality in Vietnam, what kind of real life situation you have encountered that demonstrate gender inequality? I watch so many situations, many people suffer from both physical and mental violence, and also sexual violence as well. When wife is forced to have a son at all cost, and under these situation, you see lots of discord and pains and sufferings for women, and also for health problems for them, and even death in some tragic situation. So sometimes a woman may have 5 or 6 children, so as eventually she can have a son as expected by her husband families. But then you know that it will create poverty and family discord. Such situations are far from uncommon. And as you know, many young women nowadays, they no longer accept that situation, and we have to deal with the conflict that emerge. Many young women nowadays, they resort to divorce, or they even raise their voice because they want to live their life. They say that the child, whether a boy or daughter, they're still my child. But the situation is still rampant, as you know. Final question. If you want to send a message or an advice to our men, particularly as we are approaching match the age, what will be your message? So, women love you, and as men, you always have mother, sister, girlfriends. If you want I think you all want to receive love from women, not just hatred or disappointment. So women's satisfaction and happiness can bring happiness to our whole society. Thank you very much, Van Anh. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned on our live stream with Van Anh. In a few minutes, we'll have another presentation at this dialogue, and I wish you all the best. Thank you. Now, let's discuss with the second speaker, Professor Nguyễn Đình Củ from Institutes of Population, Family and Children. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Professor Củ, what do you think about GBSS? GBSS reflects serious gender inequality since the time of pregnancy and before the child is even born. And there are many causes. A key causes, a root causes, is a cultural cause, which is the son preference mindset, which originates from Confucianism. Viet Nam is a country strongly influenced by Confucianism. So that is the kind of a root cause. But there's also another fundamental cause, which is our country has not achieved a high level of social and economic development. For example, only 20% of older persons are covered under social insurance and other forms of social security, and therefore they depend on their children to support them during their old age, and it is normally assumed that it must be a son. There are also direct causes. For example, the abuse of technologies at the moment. There are many causes. So, in your view, how can we promote the participation of men to promote gender equality in Vietnam? So the role of a man to promote gender equality in Vietnam is substantial. For example, in the family, mother and father must educate their children about gender equality. We need to treat our children equally. We cannot teach our daughter to become a housewife, and we teach our son to become an intellectual. So in the family, the owners of the family must know gender equality should be observed and practiced in all aspects, in nutrition, in education, and also in the responsibility towards the family. And the husband should share the workload and household chores with women. As you know, nowadays women have to work 8 hours per day, and husbands are responsible for sharing the workload with women. And we also want to talk about older persons. So grandparents should treat children equally and do not exert a pressure on either daughter or daughter-in-law to bear a son. So at each stage, we see that we need to emphasize the role of men in different stages of life, but in every stages, their role is important. Thank you very much for your wonderful advice and messages. Thank you again for joining us. Ladies and gentlemen, according to the Population and Housing Census 2020, the SIB in Vietnam is the third highest in Asia, only after China and India. The causes include the sun preference, and today the UNFPA in Vietnam has supported many countries in the world to control the imbalance of SIB, and that is the reason why we organize this dialogue today in Hanoi, and also connecting with many other locations across the country.
It is how you raise a kid regardless of the gender. Girl deserve to shine. It is how you raise a kid regardless of the gender. Girl deserve to shine.
Tại nhiều gia đình Việt Nam, quan niệm con gái là con người ta, con trai mới có thể nối dõi tông đường, thờ cúng tổ tiên vẫn ăn sâu bám rễ trong suy nghĩ. Nếu không sinh được con trai, họ sẽ không nhận được sự tôn trọng của dòng họ làng xóm. Con gái sau này thường sẽ về ở nhà chồng khi đi lấy chồng, nên họ cũng lo lắng không có người chăm sóc khi về già, không có người thờ cúng khi qua đời. Tâm lý thích con trai khiến họ mong muốn có được một cậu con trai để nối dõi tông đường. Chính vì vậy họ bằng mọi cách để thực hiện như soi trứng, lọc tinh trùng và điều tiết chế độ ăn uống trước khi mang thai. Dù pháp luật Việt Nam nghiêm cấm chẩn đoán lựa chọn giới tính thai nhi bằng bất cứ biện pháp nào, nhưng họ vẫn có nhiều cách để biết được giới tính của đứa bé trong bụng mẹ. Do mỗi gia đình thường chỉ có từ 1 đến 2 con, nên nếu thai nhi là gái, nhiều cặp vợ chồng đã lựa chọn phá thai để mong đợi có bé trai cho lần sinh tiếp theo. Những bé gái đã mất tích cả trước khi được chào đời. Năm 2019, nếu so với tỷ số giới tính khi sinh theo quy luật sinh đẻ tự nhiên, thì Việt Nam đã thiếu khoảng 45.900 bé gái được ra đời. Cụ thể hơn, theo Tổng điều tra quốc gia về dân số và nhà ở năm 2019, cứ 100 bé gái sinh ra thì có tới 111,5 bé trai ra đời. Cao hơn hẳn quy luật tự nhiên là 105 đến 106 bé trai trên 100 bé gái. Việt Nam là một trong 3 nước châu Á có tỷ lệ mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh cao nhất sau Trung Quốc và Ấn Độ. Tình trạng này đã kéo dài nhiều năm kể từ năm 2004. Sẽ có tác động về vấn đề nhân khẩu học khi có tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Ví dụ như dự tính đến năm 2034, Việt Nam sẽ thừa 1,5 triệu nam giới tuổi từ 15 đến 49 tuổi và con số này sẽ tăng lên 2,5 triệu người vào năm 2059 nếu tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không giảm. Theo xu hướng này, các nhà nhân khẩu học gọi chung là khủng hoảng hôn nhân khi nhiều nam giới sẽ khó tìm được bạn đời. Mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không có nghĩa là vị thế của phụ nữ được nâng lên mà hoàn toàn ngược lại. Khi đó các em gái có thể sẽ phải kết hôn sớm hơn, tình trạng buôn bán phụ nữ, bạo lực với phụ nữ, tệ nạn mại dâm sẽ xảy ra nghiêm trọng hơn. Trong nhiều năm qua, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã rất quan tâm đến vấn đề này và đã có những chính sách và khung pháp lý để giảm mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Cụ thể, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã cấm chẩn đoán giới tính thai nhi. Theo Nghị định quy định xử phạt vi phạm hành chính trong lĩnh vực y tế, hành vi bói toán để xác định giới tính thai nhi, tuyên truyền phổ biến hoặc tư vấn để có được giới tính theo ý muốn đều bị phạt tiền từ 3 đến 5 triệu đồng. Trên thực tế, quy định này chưa thực sự phát huy hiệu quả, mức xử phạt cũng cần đích đáng hơn. Một số nước như Hàn Quốc đã có sự điều chỉnh về mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Vấn đề tâm lý ưa thích con trai đã được giải quyết và Hàn Quốc đã thúc đẩy giá trị của các bé gái, bình đẳng giới và thúc đẩy quyền năng của phụ nữ. Truyền thông thay đổi hành vi các định kiến xã hội về giới hết sức cần thiết để chấm dứt tâm lý ưa thích con trai. Trong xã hội hiện đại tại Việt Nam ngày nay, ngày càng nhiều nam giới được tham gia các hoạt động xây dựng nếp sống mới trong gia đình. Họ trở thành hình mẫu nam giới tích cực về bình đẳng giới, xây dựng mối quan hệ lành mạnh và bình đẳng trong gia đình, không sử dụng bạo lực với phụ nữ và trẻ em. Bên cạnh đó, cần tăng cường giáo dục kiến thức về quyền của phụ nữ cho người dân rộng rãi hơn về việc phụ nữ có quyền thừa kế công bằng trong gia đình. Ngoài ra, cần tăng cường hệ thống bảo trợ xã hội cho người cao tuổi nhằm giảm nhu cầu sinh con trai để còn trông cậy tuổi già. Khi không còn nặng nề quan niệm phải sinh bằng được con trai, các cặp vợ chồng sẽ không còn nghĩ tới việc sinh con trai hay con gái nữa. Những bé gái sẽ không còn bị tước đi quyền được chào đời, được sinh ra, lớn lên trong sự tôn trọng và yêu thương. Hãy trả lại sự cân bằng về giới tính khi sinh vốn có của tự nhiên, bởi điều đó sẽ góp phần mang lại sự phát triển bền vững và hạnh phúc của đất nước trong tương lai.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's our honor to welcome our distinguished guests joining us today at the dialogue on addressing gender bisex selection in Hanoi. Ladies and gentlemen, the dialogue is live streamed on the Cafe Sang or Morning Coffee talk show of VTV3, on the fan page of UNFPA, MOH, CISAGA, and live stream in English on UNFPA YouTube channel. There are many participants joining us via Zoom from Quảng Bình, Quảng Ninh, Bắc Giang, Hưng Yên, Nghệ An, Bến Tre, and Vũng Tàu. I am Thúy Quỳnh, and we wish all of you being here best wishes, good health, and happiness. Ladies and gentlemen, to promote gender equality and GBSS and other harmful practices towards the achievement of SDGs for Viet Nam by 2030, within the framework of the project addressing gender bisex selection and related harmful practices in Asia, funded by Norwegian Agency for Development 2020 and 2022, UNFPA Viet Nam, in partnership with Ministry of Health, General Office for Population, GOPFP, organized the forum, the dialogue on addressing GBSS, with the participation from Molisa, Vietnam Farmers Union, and CISAGA. Today we will discuss the possible intervention to address GBSS in Vietnam, as well as international experiences to reduce son preference and promote the value of women and girls so as to stop GBSS. Due to the COVID-19, the dialogue is organized in a hybrid format. The dialogue is organized on a very special day, one day before the International Women's Day, the March the 8th. And it's our hope that the dialogue will allow us to share information so as to control imbalance SRB caused by GBSS, and to promise commitments to promote a more equal world. To start the dialogue today, allow me to introduce distinguished guests, Her Excellency Greater Local Norwegian Ambassador to Vietnam, The second speaker, Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General, GOPFP, Ministry of Health. Madam Naomi Kichahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam. Madam Upala Dewi, Gender Technical Advisor from Asia, from Bangkok. Upala will join us via Zoom. A big applause, please. Madam Mr. Chuan Ngọc Xuân, Director of Social Economic Department, Central Economic Committee. Madam Trần Bích Loan, Deputy Director, Gender Equality Department, Molisa, joining us on Zoom. I'm pleased to introduce Mr. Trần Đức Thuận, Deputy Director, Institute of Health Strategy, MOH, joining us via Zoom. We're pleased to introduce Madam Phạm Thu Hương, Deputy Director, Department of Social Affairs, Vietnam Farmers Union. We also wish to welcome representative joining us from Central Economic Committee, Office of the Government, MPI, MOH, Melissa Farmers Union, Women's Union, Youth Union, Vietnam Confederation of Labor, Vietnam Academy of Social Sciences, and different departments from GOPFP, University of Public Health, National Economic University, Institute of Population, Family and Children, and CISAGA, as well as researchers, CSOs, and UN agencies, and Hanoi Department for Population, and also Department from Hưng Yên, Bắc Giang, Nghệ An, and Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, joining us on Zoom, and Farmers Union Department from Cà Mau, Quảng Bình, Bắc Giang, and Vũng Tàu. And also we welcome journalists and media agency covering this event. A big welcome to all of you. So we have a really long list of distinguished speakers to introduce, because it shows how this event is well received by the public. Now may I invite Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General of GOPFP, to deliver the opening remark, please. Dear Madam Greta Loken, the Norwegian Ambassador to Vietnam, Madam Naomi Kichahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam, distinguished guests from organizations like ministries, local agency, domestic and international organization, and experts joining us today at the dialogue, both offline and online. First, on behalf of GOPFP MOH, we wish to extend our warmest greetings and wishes of good health to those joining the dialogue on addressing GBSS today. Ladies and gentlemen, and distinguished guests, since 1980, GBSS and imbalanced sex ratio at birth already occur in China, India, and South Korea. And since 1990, SIB began to increase in Eastern Europe. In Vietnam, this situation was first recorded in early 21st century. However, the pace of increase has been very rapid and is still at a very high ratio. The rapidly increasing SIB in Vietnam, particularly since 2006, which is always above 111, and in 2021 this reached already 111.8. And the situation is now observed in 5 out of 6 economic regions of the country, and the level of imbalance SIB is strikingly observed among wealthy households. very much because of GBSS, with the root cause being gender inequality and son preference. And ladies and gentlemen, if the situation of imbalanced SRB in Vietnam continues, it may lead to severe social, economic, and political problems. And the lesson learned from China, India, and other countries facing the same problem demonstrate that scenario. And if we cannot control imbalance SRB, Vietnam would have an excess of 1.5 million men in 2034. In order to address imbalanced SIB, Vietnam has improved the legal frameworks on prevention of imbalanced SIB and the promotion of gender equality. On March 2016, the Prime Minister approved the decision number 486, approving the project on controlling imbalance SRB 2016 to 2025 to contain SRB, to bring SRB to the natural levels, focusing on 4 groups of solution. We focus particularly on IEC campaigns to change public awareness about GBSS. MOH has also issued a series of decisions and policy to implement the project, and in 2020 we managed to drag SIB to below 115, and we also need to keep it to the level of 109 in the next few years. And according to the latest resolution of the Central Party Committee and Vietnam Population Strategy by 2030, MOH provide instruction to different provinces on how to address imbalanced SRB, focusing on a series of comprehensive measures. By now, 44 out of 63 provinces issue their own guidelines. So at the dialogue today with the presence of a distinguished expert, I hope that you can share and discuss experiences and initiatives to minimize imbalanced SRB in Vietnam. On behalf of leaders of GOPFP, I wish to thank all ministries and organizations. Thank you for your cooperation. I thank international organizations, in particular UNFPA in Vietnam, for their support to the addressing of imbalanced SIB in Vietnam. UNFPA has provided both financial and technical support to GOPFP since the very beginning. We also believe that the population works in Vietnam will receive further support from international organizations and ministries and the entire community, so that we can achieve the goal of the project, which is to reduce SRB and to bring this ratio back to the natural level. The dialogue today is organized on the celebration of the International Women's Day. Allow me to convey our best wishes to all participants, particularly to female colleagues. We wish you beauty, happiness, and success. And thank you very much. Our sincere thanks to Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng for sharing with us what MOH and GOPFP have done to control imbalanced SRB. Now may I invite Her Excellency Greater Local Norwegian Ambassador in Vietnam to deliver the opening speech. Còn tôi hơi cao một tí, mong mọi người thông cảm. Vâng, kính thưa tất cả quý vị
participants, good morning, xin chào. Thank you for inviting me and for giving me the opportunity to give opening remarks at this important and timely hybrid event to address gender bias sex selection on the day before the International Women's Day. On the occasion of the International Women's Day tomorrow, I would like to wish all female participants and all women in Vietnam great health, happiness, and success in their life and careers. And it's great to see so many young people participating in this event today. You are actually the one with the most innovative skills and creativity, which is very important in our joint efforts to raise awareness and hopefully change behavior. The global situation on gender equality is characterized by contradictions and paradoxes. On the one hand, opposition to women's rights is increasing in some countries and regions. On the other hand, there is a growing trend towards gender equality related to targeted efforts of governments and women's own battle for their rights to provide better opportunities for women to participate in society at all levels and on equal footing with men. At the core of these contradictions are often ideologies and traditions that view gender equality as a threat to the institution of the family, pressure to maintain traditional gender roles, and on the other side, the fight for the right to decide over our own body and sexuality. Harmful practices such as child marriage, female genital mutilation, and son preference, and the latter being prevalent here in Vietnam, are among the most serious manifestations of discrimination against girls and women. Harmful practices take different forms in different countries, also affecting boys and men, but common to all of them is that they affect girls disproportionately. They have an impact on the health of girls and women, rob them of educational opportunities, and make it more difficult for them to take part in society and working life. Norway gives high priority in its development policies to strengthening and defending global norms against harmful practices and promoting the rights of girls and women. We will raise this issue and work together with the authorities of the countries in which harmful practices are most prevalent. We will support the UN, whose global programs have demonstrated success, and we will work together with civil society organizations that have the best insight into which actions will promote positive changes at the local level. In Vietnam, we are very pleased to work together with UNFPA in addressing gender-based sex selection and son preference. UNFPA has been in Vietnam for many years, working closely with the government agencies and related partners, such as civil society organizations, in identifying the causes of practice and implementing countermeasures. To succeed in eliminating harmful practices, such as gender-based sex selection and son preference, it is important that there is first of all ownership in countries where these practices are prevalent. In addition, it's important to have a holistic and multi-sexual approach to prevent discrimination and provide girls and women with the same opportunities as boys and men. These measures should include promotion of gender equality, education, healthcare, legislative reform, and changing social norms in local communities. They all play a key role in eliminating harmful practices. And of course, the media, traditional and online, has an important role to play with its great outreach in addressing these issues. Son preference is a reflection of the low value ascribed to girls and women and is rooted in social norms and traditions. The ramifications of son preference range from sex-selective abortion to neglect and killing of girls, Some preference also manifests itself by denying education to girls and allowing legal systems that discriminate against women. For instance, through the tradition of inheritance from father to sons, not daughters. Boys are seen as an economic security for aging parents and secure the family lineage. Having sons give parents higher status, which puts pressure on women to give birth to boys. As a result, families invest more in their boy child than the girl child, and girls may be viewed as a burden. In the past 10 years, technology has made both prenatal sex determination and sex-selective abortion possible. These are some of the consequences you also experience here in Vietnam. The negative impacts of some preference are difficult to quantify. One measure is the democratic impact as represented by a higher than normal proportion of men in certain countries. This is often described as missing women. It brought about in some countries when the male sex ratio at birth is higher than normal, combined with a higher mortality rate for girls and women than for boys and men. The two countries where this is most prevalent are India and China, but it's also highly relevant in Vietnam. In Vietnam, preference for sons combined with the declined fertility and the availability of sex selection technology are contributing to a highly imbalanced sex ratio at birth in Vietnam, which my previous speaker also talked about. In order to address harmful practices, including some preference and gender-based sex selection in a more systemic manner, Norway has developed an international strategy to eliminate harmful practices, which I'm happy to share with you if you are interested. In terms of addressing some preference, I would like to mention 3 important areas of intervention. 1, strengthen data collection and monitoring by establishing systems that record vital statistics such as birth and deaths by gender. 2, reform of laws such as family laws and institutional practices in order to alter norms that perpetuate some preference, such as workplace policies and educational policies are all extremely important. And 3, strengthen advocacy efforts and raising awareness to promote attitudinal changes. And of course, the media is highlighted as a very effective actor in this regard. Finally, I wish you a very successful and inspirational workshop the day before the International Women's Day. And girls deserve to shine. Thank you. Come on.
Xin cảm ơn những chia sẻ của đại sứ Gretel Loken và cũng xin được cảm ơn chính phủ Na Uy đã dành những cái sự hỗ trợ cho chính phủ Việt Nam nhằm đạt được bình đẳng giới trên đất nước của chúng tôi ạ. Tiếp theo thì xin được trân trọng kính mời bà Naomi Kitahara, trưởng đại diện Quỹ Dân số Liên Hợp Quốc tại Việt Nam sẽ có bài phát biểu với tọa đàm ngày hôm nay ạ. We would like to invite Ms. Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA representative, to share her speech. Please welcome.
Excellency, Ms. Gretel Loken, Ambassador of Norway to Vietnam, Mr. Phan Vu Hoan, Deputy Director of GOPFP, Ministry of Health, representatives from Moriza, MOH, Vietnam Farmers Union, Vietnam Youth Union, Vietnam Women's Union, and CSAGA, UN colleagues and media, online participants, including my colleague, Ms. Upara Davi, Regional Technical Advisor for Gender at the UNFPA Regional Office in Bangkok, participants from Quang Ninh, Bac Giang, Hun Yen, Nghệ An, Vung Tau, and Ben Tre provinces. Good morning. It is my pleasure to be here today for the policy dialogue on addressing gender-biased sex selection in Vietnam. I would like to thank the Ministry of Health for co-organizing this event in coordination with the Ministry of Labor, Invalids and Social Affairs, MORISA, Vietnam Farmers Union, and CISAGA. Gender equality in Vietnam has improved over the past decades, and the UNFPA is very proud to have been part of the process. However, GBSS as a harmful practice for women and girls continue to remain in the country. And some preference, which is anything but a benign tradition, is a product of gender-biased systems that place higher social status to men and boys and which favor male over female children. The manifestation of GBSS can be directly measured through a sex ratio at birth, SRB. And Vietnam's sex ratio at birth is the third highest in Asia, following China and India. Evidence shows that this demographic imbalance is a result of prenatal sex selection, which is a termination of pregnancy when the fetus is determined to be a girl. The skewed SRB in Vietnam towards more boys has rapidly increased and reached 111.5 boys per 100 girls in 2019, as indicated in the 2019 Population and Housing Census, against the biologically normal SRB, which is 1.5 to 1.6 boys against 100 girls. Data from the census also estimated that every year 45,900 female births are missing in Vietnam. This means that 45,900 girls are not born every year in Vietnam because they were found to be a girl. This has to change immediately, and it is the intent of the discussion here today. Dear participants, under the project addressing gender-biased sex selection and related harmful practices in Vietnam, funded by the government of Norway for the period 2020 and 2022, UNFPA, in partnership with MOH, MORISA, Vietnam Farmers Union, and CISAGA, is supporting the ongoing efforts of the government of Vietnam to fully implement the approved legal and policy frameworks to end GBSS through innovative communication campaigns to change social cultural norms and harmful practices such as some preference, and to address the undervaluing of girls. The project also helps to improve the local media's reporting skills for domestic violence and gender-biased sex selection, and streamline the country's coordination mechanisms. Also, under the framework of the project, a fatherhood program has been implemented to encourage men and boys to share housework and childbearing, thus contributing to respecting the roles of women and girls and to achieve gender equality in the family and social settings. Vietnam has legal frameworks and national programs to promote gender equality and prohibit GBSS. However, the 2019 evaluation report on policies related to GBSS, the review on the implementation of the law on gender equality in 2020, and the population census monograph all have pointed out that there are still some policy gaps and law enforcement challenges. It is clear that the GBSS results from three compelling factors. One is the prevailing concept of some preference, which is deep-rooted in Vietnam's society, and this makes GBSS desirable. The second is fertility limitation, as people have only a limited number of chances to conceive, and this drives GBSS. And lastly, the availability of reproductive technology, which enables GBSS. I hope today's discussion can jointly call for stronger actions to stop and eliminate GBSS in Vietnam. And here, it is critical that individuals and couples have the right to decide freely and responsibly the number, spacing, and timing of having children in accordance with the principles of the International Conference on Population and Development, ICPD. Dear participants, we do need to appeal for more participation of men and boys in enabling GBSS as we mark the International Women's Day on the 8th of March, which is tomorrow. Women are often under pressure from their families and societies to conceive a boy and not a girl. Vietnam is very aware of the problem of GBSS and has implemented many measures, but a lot more needs to happen to reverse the trend. Change may not happen overnight, but I trust that through solidarity, we can create a movement for social change, and with GBSS as a development issue to achieve Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs, by 2030. I wish you a fruitful discussion today and a happy International Women's Day. Xin cảm ơn.
My sincere thanks to Madam Naomi Kitahara, and thank you for your call for more involvement of men and boys in stopping GBSS. Ladies and gentlemen, to control imbalance SRB and GBSS, let's take action together and stop son preference and promote the value of women and girls in the society. Let them have the opportunity to shine. Now let's join us to see a very short clip.
Tại nhiều gia đình Việt Nam, quan niệm con gái là con người ta, con trai mới có thể nối dõi tông đường, thờ cúng tổ tiên vẫn ăn sâu bám rễ trong suy nghĩ. Nếu không sinh được con trai, họ sẽ không nhận được sự tôn trọng của dòng họ làng xóm. Con gái sau này thường sẽ về ở nhà chồng khi đi lấy chồng, nên họ cũng lo lắng không có người chăm sóc khi về già, không có người thờ cúng khi qua đời. Tâm lý thích con trai khiến họ mong muốn có được một cậu con trai để nối dõi tông đường. Chính vì vậy họ bằng mọi cách để thực hiện như soi trứng, lọc tinh trùng và điều tiết chế độ ăn uống trước khi mang thai. Dù pháp luật Việt Nam nghiêm cấm chẩn đoán lựa chọn giới tính thai nhi bằng bất cứ biện pháp nào, nhưng họ vẫn có nhiều cách để biết được giới tính của đứa bé trong bụng mẹ. Do mỗi gia đình thường chỉ có từ 1 đến 2 con, nên nếu thai nhi là gái, nhiều cặp vợ chồng đã lựa chọn phá thai để mong đợi có bé trai cho lần sinh tiếp theo. Những bé gái đã mất tích cả trước khi được chào đời. Năm 2019, nếu so với tỷ số giới tính khi sinh theo quy luật sinh đẻ tự nhiên, thì Việt Nam đã thiếu khoảng 45.900 bé gái được ra đời. Cụ thể hơn, theo Tổng điều tra quốc gia về dân số và nhà ở năm 2019, cứ 100 bé gái sinh ra thì có tới 111,5 bé trai ra đời. Cao hơn hẳn quy luật tự nhiên là 105 đến 106 bé trai trên 100 bé gái. Việt Nam là một trong 3 nước châu Á có tỷ lệ mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh cao nhất sau Trung Quốc và Ấn Độ. Tình trạng này đã kéo dài nhiều năm kể từ năm 2004. Sẽ có tác động về vấn đề nhân khẩu học khi có tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Ví dụ như dự tính đến năm 2034, Việt Nam sẽ thừa 1,5 triệu nam giới tuổi từ 15 đến 49 tuổi và con số này sẽ tăng lên 2,5 triệu người vào năm 2059 nếu tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không giảm. Theo xu hướng này, các nhà nhân khẩu học gọi chung là khủng hoảng hôn nhân khi nhiều nam giới sẽ khó tìm được bạn đời. Mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không có nghĩa là vị thế của phụ nữ được nâng lên mà hoàn toàn ngược lại. Khi đó các em gái có thể sẽ phải kết hôn sớm hơn, tình trạng buôn bán phụ nữ, bạo lực với phụ nữ, tệ nạn mại dâm sẽ xảy ra nghiêm trọng hơn. Trong nhiều năm qua, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã rất quan tâm đến vấn đề này và đã có những chính sách và khung pháp lý để giảm mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Cụ thể, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã cấm chẩn đoán giới tính thai nhi. Theo Nghị định quy định xử phạt vi phạm hành chính trong lĩnh vực y tế, hành vi bói toán để xác định giới tính thai nhi, tuyên truyền phổ biến hoặc tư vấn để có được giới tính theo ý muốn đều bị phạt tiền từ 3 đến 5 triệu đồng. Trên thực tế, quy định này chưa thực sự phát huy hiệu quả, mức xử phạt cũng cần đích đáng hơn. Một số nước như Hàn Quốc đã có sự điều chỉnh về mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Vấn đề tâm lý ưa thích con trai đã được giải quyết và Hàn Quốc đã thúc đẩy giá trị của các bé gái, bình đẳng giới và thúc đẩy quyền năng của phụ nữ. Truyền thông thay đổi hành vi các định kiến xã hội về giới hết sức cần thiết để chấm dứt tâm lý ưa thích con trai. Trong xã hội hiện đại tại Việt Nam ngày nay, ngày càng nhiều nam giới được tham gia các hoạt động xây dựng nếp sống mới trong gia đình. Họ trở thành hình mẫu nam giới tích cực về bình đẳng giới, xây dựng mối quan hệ lành mạnh và bình đẳng trong gia đình, không sử dụng bạo lực với phụ nữ và trẻ em. Bên cạnh đó, cần tăng cường giáo dục kiến thức về quyền của phụ nữ cho người dân rộng rãi hơn về việc phụ nữ có quyền thừa kế công bằng trong gia đình. Ngoài ra, cần tăng cường hệ thống bảo trợ xã hội cho người cao tuổi nhằm giảm nhu cầu sinh con trai để còn trông cậy tuổi già. Khi không còn nặng nề quan niệm phải sinh bằng được con trai, các cặp vợ chồng sẽ không còn nghĩ tới việc sinh con trai hay con gái nữa. Những bé gái sẽ không còn bị tước đi quyền được chào đời, được sinh ra, lớn lên trong sự tôn trọng và yêu thương. Hãy trả lại sự cân bằng về giới tính khi sinh vốn có của tự nhiên, bởi điều đó sẽ góp phần mang lại sự phát triển bền vững và hạnh phúc của đất nước trong tương lai.
See some important figures. According to the 2019 census, Vietnam is facing the issues of imbalanced SRB. The SRB in Vietnam in 2019 reached 111.5 male births per 100 female births, while the natural SRB is between 103 and 106. It is estimated that by 2034, Vietnam will have an excess of 1.5 million males, and by 2059 this number will rise to 2.5 million, which is almost 9% of the male population. Now may I invite Mr. Nguyễn Xuân Trường, Director of Quality and Population Structure, GOPFP, to discuss in more detail the issue of SRB in Vietnam. Dr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director of GOPFP, Madam Greta Lochen, Norwegian Ambassador to Vietnam, Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam. Ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests from different ministries joining us both online and offline, and their representatives from different provinces joining us on Zoom. As assigned by the organizing committee, allow me to have a presentation very much related to today's topic, which is the implementation results of the national project on controlling imbalanced SRB 2016-2020 and orientation towards the next phase 2021 and 2025. I'm going to talk about 4 parts. First, I want to update you on the current situation of imbalanced SRB in Vietnam and how interventions have been implemented. And then we talk about the results of the intervention for the period 2016 and 2020. And then we will review the interventions. We explain why some are effective and in what aspect we still need to improve. And finally, we will talk about orientation towards controlling SRB 2021 and 2025. About the current situation in the presentation of previous speakers, everyone emphasized that SIB, imbalance SIB in Vietnam was observed at the beginning of the 21st century, and in 2006 it's 109.8, and it became a heated issue, social issue. And during this period until 2020, as you can see on this chart, SIB in Vietnam remained very high. The lowest, which is 2006, where the situation was first observed, but there was a certain time, for example, 2018, the SIB was 114.8, which was the highest level. In 2020 in Vietnam, as you know, there are 6 economic regions, but now 5 out of 6 recorded imbalance SIB, with the exception of the Central Highlands at the natural level. And in 2020, if we break it down into provinces, we see that in Vietnam there are 63 provinces, but we see that 21 provinces with SIB above 112, and 18 provinces with SIB ranging from 109 to 112. About the causes of imbalance SIB, previous speakers already mentioned this. In Vietnam, imbalanced SIB can be attributed to several factors in ways quite similar to other countries, particularly those in Asia. So the sun preference is a very fundamental cause leading to GBSS. And the sun preference has existed in Vietnam for thousands of years. However, due to social and economic development, there are further causes leading to imbalanced SIB. So the development of technology is worth mentioning that allow prenatal identification of the sex of the fetus, and the abuse of technologies also contribute to the situation. The Vietnamese government recognized the ramifications of imbalanced SIB to our economy and to social stability, and the government of Vietnam has issued a series of policies to address imbalanced SIB from very early. And here you can see a couple of key documents. For example, the Population Ordinance since 2003 prohibits GBSS under any circumstances. And then we have the Gender Equality, which also prohibits GBSS. And on March 2016, the PM issued the decision number 468 approving the project on controlling imbalanced SIB until 2025. And after that, Ministry of Health issued a series of documents to implement this project. And MOH also worked with ministries and other organizations to launch this project at the central level. At the local level, MOH provides guidelines to all local provinces to implement this project in line with the decision 468. So every year MOH present a report to the National Assembly and to the government. At the local level, in the period between 2016 and 2020, 62 out of 63 provinces issued their own provincial plan for the implementation of the project. And every year the provinces are building on central documents. Every province is also set their own targets and identify specific tasks to implement the 468 project. So a review of the implementation of the project between 2016 and 2020 shows that we achieved the key goals. For example, SIB in this period, we managed to control the rise below 0.4 percentage point, and as you see in 2020, the SIB was at 112.1, and SIB in 2020, as you see, was maintained below 115. However, we also see that apart from what we have achieved, we also see remaining shortcomings and challenges, particularly at the local level. And we break it down into different types of limitation. And every year we issue guidelines for adjustment so that to improve the effectiveness of policy. So as you know, every year we will have to prepare a report to the PM on the progress of the project. And in 2020 and 2021, with the support from UNFPA and also from the Norwegian embassy, we launched a review of the implementation results of the current intervention on GBSS in Vietnam. And this report is in the process of finalization. We seek to provide an overview of intervention on GBS in Vietnam, the shortcomings and limitation, and some recommendations as for how we can further promote the goals of the project. And allow me not to go into the detail. You can see the handouts for further details. The third section I want to talk about is that in the period between 2021 and 2025, MOH, building on the Vietnam population strategy 2020 and 2025, and MOH issue a new guidelines to central and local organizations to implement intervention for the 2021 and 2025 period. About the goal, so in the previous period, 16 and 20, the government aims to control the pace of increase of SIB, but in the next period, the new goal will be to reduce SIB to the normal natural level. So a higher levels of intervention. We no longer seek to merely contain the increase. Now we seek to reduce SIB to the natural level. And we also identified the orientations to achieve that goal. So we have a series of solutions in the 21-25 period. We divide the country into three group of provinces depending on the SIB. So for provinces with SIB below 109, so the tasks they have to implement are very much inconsistent with the project 468 for provinces with SIB from 109 to 112, which is the second group. So apart from implementing solution as set out in the 468 project, they also need to implement a series of support policies to couple with only daughters, as per the circular number 1/2021 of MOH. For provinces with the highest SIB above 112, they also need to implement innovative IEC activities and advocacy campaigns. So basically, this new period strategy will be basically disaggregated by provinces. We do not have a universal set of guidelines for all provinces, but we break it down into different groups to have additional measure and interventions if necessary. And this is very much in line with recommendation from UNFPA. And as you see, we have very specific guidelines for each group of provinces. Because the time is short, allow me not to go into details. And we know that the implementation of this project, the project of 468, and other intervention to minimize imbalance SIB in Vietnam. For the previous period, we really thankful to the support from ministries and local organizations, and we also receive financial and technical support from international organizations and UNFPA, the Norwegian Embassy, and the EU. We thank you very much for the support to implement those those interventions, and we hope that in the next period we continue to receive and support and cooperation from central and local agency and international organization. Thank you very much. As you know, we organize this event on a very special occasion at the anniversary of International Women's Day. May I extend best wishes to half of the world, to our women. Thank you very much for your contribution to the society and also for your active role in addressing GBSS. Thank you very much, Mr. Chung, for sharing your report with us. And as you can see, there's still gaps between policies and the actual implementation of policies. According to the 2019 census, SIB in Vietnam is the third highest in Asia, only after China and India. And UNFPA is supporting many countries in the world to address imbalance SIB. Now may I invite Mrs. Upala Dewi from Asia Pacific Regional Office to share experiences on ending GBSS. She will join us on Zoom. May I invite Mrs. Upala Devi, please?
Good morning, everybody, and a very, very warm welcome to all of you. And thank you so much for inviting me to this forum today. I start by saying that beyond their immediate havoc, the fallout from the humanitarian crisis is treacherous to girls' and women's rights. Emergencies, as we all know, fuel harmful practices, and along with gender-based violence, all of which share a common thread, culturally sanctioned, and ill-informed social norms that girls and women hold less value than boys and men. And I heard also right now my previous speakers who were also talking about the fact that in many societies around the world, including in Vietnam, girls and women really hold less value than boys and men. As we all know, we now have we have quite a few actually humanitarian crises falling in front of our eyes. We have the COVID-19 crisis, which is still ongoing for the last 2 years. And then we have the war, which just started 2 weeks ago. So, and as forecasted by the UN, the pandemic and now the war will disrupt efforts to end harmful practices. Lockdowns, school closures, and economic downturns, for example, linked to COVID-19, are disproportionately impacting girls who have reduced access to sexual and reproductive health services and are facing rising incidences of harmful practices. And not surprisingly, really not surprisingly, emerging anecdotal evidence that has come out indicates that harmful practices, for instance, child marriage, are occurring more frequently. And we can be sure that for every report of violation to girls' rights to harmful practices, there are many more incidents that hide in the shadows unreported. Against this background, I today wanted to focus my remarks on one harmful practice that has brought governments and multi-stakeholders together, including the government of Vietnam, to cohesively address the issue, that of gender-biased sex selection, and that which reflects well our commitment on addressing discrimination that manifests in son preference and lower value for girls. I will speak to a history of work in the next couple of minutes on addressing gender-biased sex selection and son preference, the current global program that's funded by Norway, and linking it up to the objectives of this forum. As we all know, son preference is a harmful practice that reflects gender inequality that remains deeply rooted in some societies in the form of low value placed on women and girls. Patriarchal structures reinforce son preference and perpetuate a climate of violence and discrimination against women and girls in society. Gender-biased sex selection, the deliberate elimination of girls and women through abortion, through infanticide, through neglect, is a manifestation of son preference. As a result, we see imbalanced sex ratio at birth in favor of boys that has become prevalent in several countries, including in Vietnam. Declining fertility, rapid developments in technology that allows parents to know the sex of the fetus have exacerbated this practice. Gender-biased sex selection and skewed sex ratios of birth have been observed when there are really three factors that come together. The first is son preference, really. Societal patterns are strongly patriarchal, strongly entrenched in deep masculinity cultures, and mostly patrilocal, which means that socioeconomic structures are designed in ways that allocate a cost to having a girl and a benefit actually to having a boy. That's number one. The number two factor is fertility decline. The affected countries that have witnessed rapid fertility decline, including Vietnam, while the patriarchal socio-cultural norms and structures defining these countries have not changed as rapidly. Families that intend to have a limited number of children are therefore more inclined to resort to gender-biased sex selection to ensure that they at least have one son and not a daughter. And the third factor is the emergence of new technology. Emergence of new technology for prenatal sex diagnosis with the availability of access to abortion. This is allowed in some countries where abortion is already legal to interrupt pregnancy of female fetuses basing on the decision only on the deliberate sex selection criteria, unfortunately. We all know that sex selection can take place before a pregnancy is established, when you decide whether to have a boy or girl, during pregnancy through sex-natal sex detection and selective abortion, or following birth through infanticide or child neglect. Sex selection is sometimes used for family balancing purposes, but in most cases, really typically, it occurs because of systematic preference for boys than having a girl. Although availability of technologies for the early determination of sex has proved an additional method for sex selection, this is really not the root cause of the problem. Where the underlying context of son preference does not exist, the availability of techniques to determine sex does not necessarily to their use for sex selection. Any efforts to address son preference and gender-biased sex selection must therefore promote, protect, and fulfill the sexual and reproductive health of girls and women. All member states of the United Nations have an obligation under human rights law to respect, to protect, and fulfill the human rights of women and girls. And for more than 20 years, the United Nations Population Fund, UNFPA, has been breaking taboos to pioneer campaigns against son preference. UNFPA, or the United Nations Population Fund, is currently working to eliminate harmful practices, including son preference, gender-biased sex selection, female genital mutilation, child early and forced marriages, which affect women and girls worldwide. UNFPA's work in this area is guided by the 1994 Program of Action of the International Conference on Population and Development and the UNFPA Strategic Plan. As part of the International Conference on Population and Development, which is called the ICPD Program of Action, states have agreed to eliminate all forms of discrimination against the girl child and the root causes of son preference, which results in harmful and unethical practices regarding female infanticide and prenatal sex selection. It is very important also to stress here that UNFPA's work to address son preference and gender-biased sex selection is focused on addressing the deeply rooted gender discrimination against women and girls, which really, as we all know, and other speakers have also alluded to, is the underlying factor, the main factor that drives gender-biased sex selection. At the global level, UNFPA co-chairs and co-led efforts with the World Health Organization to develop and subsequently release the first ever UN policy statement on the issue in 2010, around 11 years ago. At the regional level, UNFPA first convened, it was the first agency that convened a conference on sex ratio imbalance in the Republic of Korea, in South Korea, in 1994, to sensitize, gather experiences, and develop responses for countries in the region, followed by conferences in China in 2004, India in 2007, and Vietnam in 2011. To provide a sound basis for policy development and action, we all know that reliable data is needed on the prevalence and impact of this practice. Information is necessary, not only for the public, but also for the policymakers, for governments to adjust their policy and government actions. Therefore, UNFPA is working to close the gap in availability of data, for example, by helping countries via South-South modalities like India, China, Vietnam, Armenia, Albania, Azerbaijan, and Georgia to develop the capacities to conduct and analyze censuses and demographic health surveys and to create reliable birth and death registries. In 2016, 5 years ago, UNFPA started the implementation of the first ever global program, the first ever UN program to prevent son preference and the underlying value of girls, supported by the European Union. The global program was a 3-year program, as I just mentioned, was supported by the European Union. It was implemented across 2 regions, in Armenia, Azerbaijan, Georgia, Bangladesh, Nepal, and Vietnam. The program aimed to strengthen evidence-based policies and programs in addressing son preference, the low value of girls, and gender inequalities resulting in gender-biased sex selection in countries of prevalence in Asia and the Caucasus. The European Union program applied a very comprehensive and integrated approach, working to expand the existing knowledge based on sex ratio imbalance through demographic, socio-cultural, proportional policy research at national and regional levels, and by strengthening capacity for advocacy, development, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation of policies and programs to address sex selection at national and regional levels. We now all know that we need more knowledge of sex ratio and birth imbalances. We need knowledge on subnational variations in countries, amongst regions, and between ethnic, religious, and income groups. Tools to evaluate the progress of specific policies should therefore include baseline and regular follow-up surveys, as well as in-depth retrospective analysis. The need for adequate monitoring and evaluation of policy initiatives is needed when public and civil society organizations from different regions are increasingly capacitated and engaged in dialogue and experience sharing. And as I mentioned, sustained capacity development of multi-stakeholder governments, policymakers, research institutions, civil society stakeholders, media organizations is key. Finally, campaigns that uphold the value of girls should be undertaken. Efforts are focused mostly on working for advocacy, sensitization, and awareness programs by UNFPA. We target special groups, for example, health professionals, religious groups, the media, youth organizations, young women, and students, because such campaigns, as we found from my experience in different countries, aim to change mindsets, attitudes, and behaviors towards the girl child. One of the major messages of this campaign relates to the role of girls and women in society, for instance, by showcasing women's successes and their contributions to the birth family. Work in this area has continued to build on the global program under the current second phase that's supported by Norway and UNFPA, and will continue to expand its work to eliminate the harmful practice of some countries. In Vietnam, we've seen that there is a very good track record, really a very good track record of addressing this issue over the last 15 years in collaboration with the government. Many good practices have emerged, and that really puts Vietnam as a model good practice country for the purposes of South-South collaboration. I'm very pleased, for example, to see also that in the UNFPA's latest State of the World Population Report, as well as in our current strategic plan, the work on addressing son preference and gender-biased sex selection is very much embedded under Outcome 3, Output 10, and the related Output 10 theory of change. I therefore see that for colleagues from the countries and regions that are working to address this issue, the support from the European Union and Norway really gives us immense opportunities to work together to plan our strategic interventions at the country, regional, and headquarters level, in alignment with the UNFPA theory of change. Once again, a very, very warm welcome to everyone for a productive forum, for sharing of experiences, mutual learning, and to discuss ways forward to address and combat this harmful practice, and to really elevate the status of women and girls in society. Thank you so much for giving you the opportunity, and good luck for the forum.
Thank you so much for your sharing, Ms. Opala Devi.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have finished the first part of today's presentation. We listened to Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam, Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General of GOPFP, and Her Excellency Greater Lorcan. And we listened to a discussion of imbalanced SIB in Vietnam via the presentation by Mr. Nguyễn Xuân Trường from GOPFP, and international experiences from Opala Devi. As you see, exactly as what Madam Naomi Kitahara has shared with us, we are celebrating the International Women's Day, and I know many women suffer from pressure from the family on giving birth to a son. So if they can receive support from men, definitely we can create lots of positive changes, and for that reason we need stronger action to reduce imbalance SIB, which is still very high in Vietnam, even in Asia. And we also need to pay further attention to how to address the need of couples to select the numbers of children and the intervals between birth in ways that suit your need. Now, may I invite Madam Trần Bích Loan from Gender Equality Department, Molisa, to talk about the solutions to reduce GBSS. Please connect us to Madam Trần Bích Loan, who will join us on Zoom. Dear Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General of GOPFP, Her Excellency Great Loken, Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA Viet Nam. First, allow me to extend my gratitude to the organizing committee to share the intervention chaired by Molisa in collaboration with other ministries at the central and local level to promote communication activities on gender equality and the alleviation of harmful practices concerning GBSS in Vietnam. I wish all of you good health, happiness, and success. In my presentation, because the time is limited, allow me to focus only on some key points, key interventions implemented by Molisa. Could you help me share the PowerPoint presentation? As you see in the previous presentation by Mr. Huang, by Madam Loken and Madam Naomi Kitahara, as well as from GOPFP, all presentation emphasize key figures that really demonstrate the imbalance SRB in Vietnam, and we see an increasing trend since 2006. And Molisa, the agency responsible for gender equality, has gathered data on this matter as a matter of promoting gender equality policies and laws, and to implement our all interventions. And the figures have been highlighted in all of our reports. And in the period between 2011 and 2020, and for the next period, 2021 and 2030, Molisa worked with MOH to implement several key strategies. For example, the national strategies on gender equality 11 and 20 and 21, 2030. So for each strategy, we have specific targets on reducing imbalance in SRB in Vietnam, and with the goal of returning these figures to the natural level, something that has been mentioned widely elsewhere in party resolutions and strategies of the government. To implement the national strategies on gender equality, Molisa also submit to the government the proposal to issue the projects for the prevention of GBV and the program of GBV prevention and response 21-25. We all understand that imbalance SIB is a key evidence of gender inequality and the prevalence of son's preference, and a key harmful practice that can delay our progress towards promoting gender equality, with a powerful negative impact on our efforts to reduce GBV. Molisa also support the government to issue the project on controlling imbalance SIB 2016 and 2025, and Molisa work with MOH to sign the JOY program to promote gender equality until 2020. Under this program, we agreed to implement 3 groups of interventions. The first is that we jointly conducted a review of policies on gender equality, and we jointly conduct IEC and awareness raising and behavior changing campaign to promote gender equality and minimize SRB. And the joint program between Molisa and MOH was also implemented by DOLISA, which is Department of Labor, and DOH, Department of Health at local level. They all signed the joint program to promote gender equality. This is an example of interministerial and intersectoral intervention and how such intervention can benefit our efforts. And we also implement a series of policy making activities. So, for example, Molisa and NMOH proposed to the government to issue the decree number 39 on providing assistance for ethnic minority women in the poor households if they adhere to the family planning policies. And Molisa worked with MOH and Ministry of Finance to issue a joint circular that guide the implementation of that decree. And the support policies for ethnic minority women have been well received because it provides direct support to ethnic minority women to help them avoid unsuitable practices. For example, having too many children in order just to have a boy. And in addition to policy making processes, a key set of activities of Molisa on this aspect has been communication. So we invest a lot on communications from the central to the local level with the aim of changing awareness and behaviors of the public on gender equality, and we seek to advocate for the public to treat GBSS as a really harmful practices that should be eliminated. As you can see, we organize a series of workshops and conferences in collaboration with other ministries and UN agencies and social organizations to launch the month of actions on gender equality since 2016. During months of action, we have a series of topics and messages. Last year, we sought to communicate the need to promote gender equality and alleviating GBSS. These are 2 of our key messages promoted during last year months of action. We seek to share these messages to all walks of life, particularly at the local level. And we see that we launch a series of communication workshops on gender equality, particularly in collaboration with the Farmers Union, targeting male members and fathers. We also target 2 key provinces in Bắc Giang and Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, and we receive very effective support from Farmers Union and men from the 2 provinces in question, so as to share the messages and communication items and products with the public. We also communicate messages on stopping GBSS via non-traditional channels, for example, messages painted on buses and taxis so as to maximize the outreach of the program. And we receive powerful support from UNFPA to implement these activities. And clearly, we think that the IEC campaign really raised the awareness of the public and policy makers so that they understand the problems on gender inequality more clearly. We need to tackle this problem using a holistic approach, from changing policy and to IEC campaigns to raise the awareness of the public. Here's a couple of images we took. This is a communication workshops we organized in Bắc Giang and Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu. As you can see, most of the participants are men, and many of them are from the Farmers Union. And these are the messages painted on buses and taxis on girls deserve to shine message. And apart from communication activities, Molisa, as the lead agencies on promoting gender equality, we organize intersectoral monitoring delegation to monitor the implementation of policies. And we often discuss with local agencies about the progress of gender equality program, when we ask for regular reports about the SRB situation and the prevalence of GBSS. We seek to make sure that local governments fully understand the seriousness of the problem and the reality on the ground, so that they can take active action to ensure that central policy are properly implemented at the local level. And we see that we need more specific recommendations building on local experiences and lessons. So, for example, we learn from the local authorities about their needs, so that we can redesign our communication products, the clips and pamphlets and books and posters. We redesign them so that local government find it more suitable to use at the local level, and to make sure that the messages are easier to understand. So the clips that you watch at the beginning of the dialogue, they are one of the clips that we have designed and provide to different local clubs and organizations, mass organizations, so that gender equality officers can use them with ease to share the messages with the public. And we think that these activities, these interventions are comprehensive and very much related to local conditions. And we also believe that in order to change the public awareness on GBSS and to promote more positive behaviors, it's not something that can be achieved overnight. We need a very consistent, long-term and sustained efforts to change cultural norms and social standards that have been entrenched in the thinking and actions of generations. And we hope that the messages that we device and communicate can be shared as widely as possible, particularly amongst the older person, among men, who will become pioneers in implementing gender equality. And we again emphasize the need to strengthen intersectoral coordination to promote gender equality and elimination of GBSS. Because these matters are not the exclusive responsibility of any single organization. No organization can do it alone. It has to be the share and joint efforts of all ministries, all organizations, and the entire public. We must join hands together in order really to really change awareness and behaviors, so as we can develop a civilized, progressive, mutually respecting society. And we hope that we can achieve more results in intersectoral coordination. And again, I want to emphasize the importance of IEC targeting the public. IEC campaign should be done more effectively and regularly and tailor to the needs of different groups to maximize effectiveness. Thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to share the lessons from Melissa. Once again, thank you for your attention. I wish you good health and safe and sound during the pandemic. Thank you, Mrs. Trần Bích Loan. Ladies and gentlemen, under the project addressing GBSS and related harmful practices in Asia, funded by the Norwegian Agency for Development 2020-2022, Vietnam Farmers Union is also an implementing partner which launched the project in Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu and Bắc Giang, mobilizing the participation of men via the fatherhood program. Now let's join us to watch a video clip on the fatherhood program.
Trong giai đoạn chiến lược của Quỹ Dân số Liên Hợp Quốc tại Việt Nam từ năm 2017 đến năm 2021, hỗ trợ xây dựng và triển khai các chính sách chương trình phòng ngừa và ứng phó với bạo lực trên cơ sở giới, bạo lực gia đình và giải quyết vấn đề liên quan đến mại dâm dựa trên bằng chứng và tiếp cận quyền con người. Quỹ Dân số Liên Hợp Quốc tại Việt Nam đã hỗ trợ kỹ thuật cho Hội Nông dân Việt Nam xây dựng thí điểm chương trình làm cha trách nhiệm tại 3 tỉnh Quảng Bình, Hậu Giang, Bắc Kạn trong giai đoạn 2017-2019 và tại Bắc Giang và Vũng Tàu trong giai đoạn 2020-2022.
Chương trình làm cha trách nhiệm được thực hiện thông qua các hoạt động thành lập các câu lạc bộ làm cha trách nhiệm với các thành viên là nam giới tuổi từ 20 đến 40, có con nhỏ từ 0 đến 7 tuổi hoặc chuẩn bị có con, sinh hoạt câu lạc bộ thường xuyên để chia sẻ kinh nghiệm chăm sóc con cái và thúc đẩy bình đẳng giới, tập huấn nâng cao năng lực về bình đẳng giới và chăm sóc con cái, tổ chức các chiến dịch truyền thông diện rộng trong cộng đồng nhằm tạo môi trường tích cực cho các thành viên câu lạc bộ vận dụng và lan tỏa các kiến thức đã học được từ câu lạc bộ, từ đó góp phần tạo ra sự thay đổi mạnh mẽ trong cộng đồng để thúc đẩy bình đẳng giới, chấm dứt bạo lực giới và lựa chọn giới tính trên cơ sở định kiến giới.
Các thành viên câu lạc bộ sẽ được tham gia tập huấn về chương trình làm cha trách nhiệm với 16 bài học chia thành 4 hợp phần, tổng thời gian là 20 giờ.
Đây là chương trình đầu tiên được thực hiện Việt Nam. Mục đích của chương trình nhằm hướng đến việc tăng cường sự tham gia của nam giới, đặc biệt là nam giới trẻ, những người sắp sửa làm cha hoặc mới làm cha trong việc phòng ngừa ứng phó bạo lực với phụ nữ và chấm dứt lựa chọn giới tính trên cơ sở định kiến giới. Chương trình hướng tới xây dựng những hình mẫu nam giới tích cực, có hành vi bình đẳng ở trong gia đình, biết chia sẻ những công việc nội trợ với người phụ nữ của mình, biết chăm sóc, quan tâm, giúp đỡ người phụ nữ của mình từ khi mang thai đến khi sinh con và đặc biệt là biết chăm sóc những người con của mình từ khi mới sinh cho đến khi 7 tuổi. Chương trình cũng giúp những người cha sẽ xây dựng những cái hình mẫu nam giới, những tấm gương nam giới tích cực cho chính những người con cái của mình sau này, biết cách xây dựng những mối quan hệ bình đẳng, lành mạnh từ trong gia đình và từ đó góp phần chấm dứt bạo lực ngay từ trong chính gia đình của mình và đóng góp vào công cuộc phòng ngừa ứng phó bạo lực giới ở trong xã hội.
Tại các buổi sinh hoạt, các ông bố sẽ được hướng dẫn bởi các hướng dẫn viên là các chuyên gia về giới, các giảng viên trong các tổ chức cộng đồng, các nhân viên tư vấn về hôn nhân và gia đình. Họ đều có kiến thức, kinh nghiệm về sức khỏe bà mẹ và trẻ em, về chủ đề làm cha, phòng chống bạo lực giới.
Chúng tôi muốn truyền đạt những kiến thức, những tình huống thực tế trong việc xử lý các mâu thuẫn trong gia đình, đặc biệt là vấn đề quan tâm chăm sóc con cái.
Qua mô hình này thì chúng tôi cũng rất là hy vọng là sẽ có một sự thay đổi và nâng cao nhận thức của những giới trẻ, những người mà sẽ làm cha làm mẹ và đang làm cha làm mẹ.
Hợp phần số 1, tôi muốn trở thành một người cha như thế nào? Ở hợp phần này, những người cha sẽ hiểu đâu là rào cản khiến mình không thể thực hiện đúng vai trò của một ông bố yêu thương và tích cực tham gia cùng con. Vì sao khi có vấn đề xảy ra với con, cách giáo dục con của chúng ta lại thất bại, khiến con không những không thay đổi như chúng ta mong muốn, mà ngày càng có khoảng cách và không muốn chia sẻ với bố nữa. Hợp phần này giúp những người cha tìm ra giải pháp để khắc phục những rào cản đó.
Hợp phần số 2, khi bắt đầu làm cha, chúng ta mong muốn trở thành người cha như thế nào? Với hợp phần này, những người chồng sẽ được học cách trở thành người bạn đời chu đáo, cách thức nuôi dưỡng mối quan hệ lành mạnh và bình đẳng với bạn đời của mình. Vợ chồng hạnh phúc sẽ là nền tảng để cùng chăm sóc, yêu thương, mang lại hạnh phúc cho những đứa con, tạo nên một gia đình ấm áp.
Hợp phần số 3, hiểu và thực hành vai trò làm cha mẹ tích cực, tham gia vun đắp bình đẳng giới và phòng chống bạo lực giới. Những người cha sẽ được cung cấp kiến thức về sự phát triển của bé trong những năm tháng đầu đời, từ đó xây dựng mối quan hệ chặt chẽ với em bé. Những người cha sẽ có thêm kiến thức về nuôi con bằng sữa mẹ và cách hỗ trợ bạn đời của mình trong việc nuôi con bằng sữa mẹ. Những người cha cũng sẽ được tìm hiểu và thực hành bình đẳng giới trong gia đình của mình như cam kết chia sẻ việc nhà, cam kết sử dụng các kỹ năng phi bạo lực. Với những kiến thức được truyền tải sinh động, chúng ta sẽ biết cách làm cha có sự tham gia tích cực trong nuôi dạy con, là một người bạn đời bình đẳng, cùng giúp con phát triển lành mạnh.
Hợp phần số 4, phòng ngừa bạo lực giới ban đầu, xây dựng trí tuệ cảm xúc ở trẻ em. Ở hợp phần này, người cha sẽ được học cách xoa dịu cảm xúc của con, học được cách thức trở thành một huấn luyện viên cảm xúc cho con, để con dần biết điều chỉnh cảm xúc, trở thành đứa trẻ sống ấm áp, nhân hậu, không sử dụng bạo lực và luôn hạnh phúc.
Đến nay đã có 25 câu lạc bộ được thành lập với hơn 900 thành viên tham gia tại 5 tỉnh Quảng Bình, Bắc Kạn, Hậu Giang, Bắc Giang và Rịa Vũng Tàu. Các kết quả bước đầu cho thấy, sau những buổi sinh hoạt và áp dụng vào thực tế, mô hình làm cha trách nhiệm đã làm thay đổi các thói quen nhận thức về bất bình đẳng giới. Ý thức, trách nhiệm của các ông bố được nâng lên rõ rệt và giúp họ trở thành những người bạn, người đồng hành đáng tin cậy, biết cách lắng nghe, khuyến khích động viên, chăm sóc, biết cách thấu hiểu những tâm tư nguyện vọng, những niềm vui, nỗi buồn của các con mình. Các ông bố biết cách sử dụng các kỹ năng giao tiếp, phi bạo lực trong gia đình cũng như ngoài xã hội.
Tham gia câu lạc bộ người cha trách nhiệm đã giúp tôi trau dồi thêm nhiều kỹ năng về chăm sóc, dạy dỗ con cái, kỹ năng tìm hiểu, nắm bắt tâm lý của con cái.
Tham gia chương trình này thì tôi cảm thấy là gia đình tôi nó có cái sự nó không còn cái sự khoảng cách giữa các cái thành viên trong gia đình nữa.
Theo cái quan niệm hồi xưa là phải có là con trai, con gái và con trai để nổi giỏi trong đường. Nhưng mà theo bọn tôi, từ khi được tham gia lớp này, lớp tôi phải học người cha trách nhiệm, thì bản thân tôi là bỏ đi cái quan điểm đó, con nào cũng là con.
Được qua cái lớp tập huấn đó thì tôi cũng nhận thấy được rất cái nhiều điều bổ ích về cái cách cư xử tâm lý khi người vợ đang nuôi con nhỏ và lựa chọn những các cái thức ăn làm sao nó nhiều dinh dưỡng cho mẹ để có cái nguồn sữa nuôi con.
Tôi thấy anh là một ông chồng tương đối là hoàn hảo đấy. Nói thế nào nhỉ? Cảm thấy rất là bằng lòng. Cái chồng mà yêu thương, nên là Mình cảm thấy nó bù đắp lại được rất là nhiều. Cho dù cái kinh tế nó còn chưa được ổn định lắm nhưng mà hai vợ chồng mình sẽ cố gắng.
Tôi cảm thấy rất hài lòng với lại cái chương trình mà mời anh tham gia vào người cha, người chồng có trách nhiệm này. Tôi muốn là mọi người lên học hỏi những người như anh.
Bố con là người quá tuyệt vời. Con yêu bố con lắm. Con yêu bố rất nhiều.
Có một bài ca cha đã viết khi chưa đặt tên con, giọt máu nóng cha đã ươm, chờ mong con mau lớn khôn. Đời hào phóng về xa, nào hãy sống biết ước mơ. Ai cũng có một thời trẻ dại, lửa thử vàng gian nan đo sức mạnh, nơi kia chân trời sáng. Nào hãy nối bước trên đường thách thác cha đã đi, và con hãy sống hơn cha đã sống một thời gian, rồi con sẽ lớn vào niềm vinh quang đang đón chờ. Dòng đời cám dỗ con hãy vững bước bằng đôi chân, dõi bước con đi và cha mong con đến.
It very clearly that men plays a very important role in promoting gender equality. Now, may I invite Madame Phạm Thu Hương from Vietnam Farmers Union to share with us the experiences in promoting the fatherhood program. Please connect us to Madame Hương. Dear Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General of GOPFP, Madame Greta Lochen, Madame Naumiki Chahara, UNFPA Viet Nam, and representatives from UNFPA Regional Office, Asia Pacific Regional Office, and dear colleagues from different ministries and different departments of the Farmers Union in Bắc Giang and Vũng Tàu and other provinces. Today I sincerely thank the organizing committee for the opportunity to share with you the experiences and the impact of the fatherhood program. As you know, during the process of developing the fatherhood program, you have seen something during the clip, but now I want to talk about the 10 lessons that we have drawn from our experiences of implementing this program, as well as some recommendation for the next step. So during the process of working with UNFPA and Farmers Union at provincial level, we have drawn important lessons as we implement the program at the local level. The first is that we must treat men who are current father and future father at the center. We must put them at the center. The program must meet their rightful needs and expectation, and we provide them, the father and future fathers, the skills and the knowledge to help them achieve their rightful needs. For example, they all hope that their children will be healthy, safe, and happy, and will become good citizens. So we give them the skills and the knowledge, as you see on the video, so that they can achieve those expectations. Second, we try to diversify communication methods As you know, the son preference and the son bias is something that is really entrenched in the Vietnamese society for many years. And so changing men's behavior cannot take place overnight and cannot take place by a single measure. So we have to use a variety of solutions, workshops, group discussions, club discussions, and stories that we share. And we ask them to become actors in interactive performances, in theatrical performances. And we gather a total, as you know, 900 men from Bắc Giang and Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu and also in Hanoi. Third, we also print poster, panoramic poster with the message "Girls deserve to shine," and the poster were publicly displayed at, for example, public places. For example, the office of the People's Committee, where everyone can see. The next lesson is that this fatherhood program with the technical and financial support from UNFPA and the Norwegian government, and apart from that, Vietnamese government and also join hand with social organization to provide budget for it within the framework of the project to reduce domestic violence in rural areas. And so we managed to mobilize financial and human resources from that project. So we want to make sure that we can combine the funding from UNFPA with counterpart funding from other resources, and to make sure that the funding from UNFPA, which is available for 2 years, can be sustained by alternative resources. And we seek to have the father achieve a better life over a very long period of time, so as they can really build a happy and gender equal family. So basically the idea is that this program should not stand alone. It should be combined with other support programs. The next lesson is that the results of this program through the support of the UNFPA, we have drawn a series of lessons, and we use those lessons as the inputs for further fatherhood program elsewhere, not just in Bắc Giang and Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu, but now in 63 provinces. The next lesson is that we have utilized the methods of participation. We do not try to give lecture to the men. We seek to inspire them to come up with the solutions themselves. We try to get them involved and to make them participate in our activity, to make them insiders, not just somebody who we want to lecture. The next lesson I want to share with you is that we have many policies to achieve gender equality, to ensure that the whole society can recognize the values of women and girls and to reduce son preference. However, in order to maximize the effectiveness of policies, the policies must be made socially relevant, particularly in remote and rural areas in ethnic minority regions. And I'm sincerely touched that during the implementation of this program, many men participants told us that I promise you, from now on, I will never beat my children, I will never hurt them, I will never treat boys more value than girls. So these are the many lessons that we have learned. And in the coming period, we promise that we will work with UNFPA Viet Nam and funding bodies and sponsors and MOH, Melissa, to implement and sustain and replicate the fatherhood program on a wider scope so as to reduce gender biases and to reduce son preference and uphold the value of women and girls. Once again, I wish to sincerely thank all participants, and today is March 7 already. I wish all the women, I hope all of us know how to value ourselves, to care for ourselves so that we can have a happy life. If we are happy, we can make our children and family happy. And I hope that women are not only responsible women, but you also become reliable friends of your husband and children. And I wish all men in this dialogue, I hope that you always handsome and healthy, and hope that you are not only responsible father, but you are also reliable partners of your children and your wife. You always understand, always listen, and grasp the pains and joy of your children and your wife. And I wish all of us that we always have the energy to work with each other, to have men in Vietnam, those who are father and will be father. I hope that you can make your girls shine. Thank you very much for all of you at the conference and from different locations. Thank you very much. My sincere thanks to Madame Hương. Ladies and gentlemen, the control of imbalance SRB through addressing GBSS requires the participation, particularly from social society. Now may I invite Madame Vân Anh from Sisaga to share with us how CSOs can contribute to addressing GBSS. Dear Madam Great Lochen, Norwegian Ambassador, Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, GOPFP, Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam, and dear all participants. when I am here listening to all of you. We have shared striking figures. The SIB in Vietnam is the third highest in Asia. And then we see we will have an excess of 1.5 million men in the coming decades. I have another number in mind. According to a recent survey, a recent study by the UNFPA in Vietnam, which is that 60%, more than 60% of women in the research, they suffer from at least one form of GBV. And building on my experiences working with Saga, I know that anywhere where women still suffer from GBV, it's also a region where we have very high imbalance SIB. Men want son to inherit the family line. Women do not want daughters because they don't want their children to suffer violence in the way they did. Many women told me they don't want to give daughters because they don't want their children to suffer the same fate that they have. Building on all of these experiences, when we launch our communication activities, we want to start from the situation. What we want to change, first and foremost, is the gender biases contained in media. Because I'm wondering whether media practitioners are actually gender sensitive enough to overcome the entrenched gender norms. In many media programs, on television, on game shows, you can see the situation sometimes being seen. Even on newspapers, sometimes they have a column on a newspapers or show that say for housewife. When you still have the assumption that women should only become housewives, it's impossible to alleviate gender inequality. You must be aware that gender biases are engraved in what we do and even in the media products that we produce. So Saga work with UNFPA in many activities, and we seek to change the situation of GBV and imbalanced SIB in Vietnam, which are closely related. Saga has 7 years working on a report on finding problems, gender problems in media outlets and media reports in Vietnam. We identify what kind of improper languages being used on media platforms. Sometimes media products actually uphold men bias. And this time when we work with UNFPA, we launch a series of agenda that seek to change the media. When we want to change the media, first we need to change media practitioner. You can see lots of, I'm not sure if you can play this video. Okay, it's fine. This is a commercial. So it's a commercial that actually contains a gender bias. And you can see this everywhere. And I often use a clip. There's a commercial on women using detergent to clean the house and choosing fish sauce And then the assumption in this commercial is that women are always responsible for fulfilling all kind of household duties and household chores, cooking, cleaning, and men and boys only sit down and enjoy. And so in a commercial on detergent, when men or boy have their shirt dirty and they always bring it home so that their women can clean the t-shirts. So these gender biases are very much well contained in so many commercials in a way that even media practitioners do not realize. And about receivers of communication and media products, many of them lack information and knowledge. Many young people, as you know, they have little knowledge about sexual and reproductive health. You see countless situations in Vietnam of young girls giving birth to children, but then they don't know how to treat the child, and then they leave the child. They let the child die because of their lack of knowledge about motherhood and pregnancy. And in recent years, we work a lot with universities. We work with both young male and female students, and we realize that they are really ill-equipped with knowledge on how to be a good parent and sexual and reproductive health. We realize that many people only think about a simple life. Men should go for important tasks, while women should only try to find a rich boy to get married. But they are very much ill-equipped about important skills and knowledge about how to be a proper man and woman and how to be a proper mother and father. UNFPA also work with us and GOPFP to organize a series of training courses for media practitioners and journalists, particularly those who work in the field of population and gender equality in these areas. So as you know, there's still a long way from knowing that gender inequality is a problem to actually realizing the problems in their own media practices. We need to ensure that even journalists understand how to communicate gender equality properly. They must change themselves first, the media practitioner, I mean. I work in Hải Dương, Quảng Ninh, and Bến Tre, and Cần Thơ. We launched a series of training workshops for media practitioners of this kind. And these are a couple of images for you. And we also provide them on guidelines on how to ensure gender-sensitive communications, the balancing of the numbers of male and female interviewees. We provide very detailed guidelines. We also work with GOPFP to prepare the contents of the app on saying no to GBSS. And this is a fascinating activity of Saga, which is an online photo exhibition. So after we have a competition, receiving entries in the forms of photos from everywhere, we set up online exhibition room for everyone to access from the internet. Because we use the 3D technology, it's very much the same way as you visit a physical exhibition gallery. We also organize a VTV talk show on VOV, on GBSS, and a series of live stream program on Saga Facebook page. which received lots of questions from the audience, particularly the Facebookers. So a couple of recommendations, couple of thoughts actually, where so we're really grateful to NFPA for giving us the opportunity to contribute a hand to changing harmful practices, including imbalance SB and GBSS. This very much relates to what we have been doing over the years, and we think that we contribute something to this. We think that NGOs should get more opportunity to participate in IEC. So small NGO like us, we are quite flexible, and actually we are very much specialized in a particular field, and for that reason we have a repertoire of skills and knowledge that we can contribute. And furthermore, we think that all media agents or organizations working in this field should have a stronger collaboration with the media. Through the media, we can touch on so many people. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam Vân Anh. While we prepare for the joy discussion and talk show, please join us to see a video on the situation of GBSS in Vietnam.
Quảng cáo xe cũ của Audi trên thị trường Trung Quốc. Trong đoạn phim, khi một cặp đôi đang tiến hành hôn lễ, ba mẹ chồng bất ngờ tiến lên lễ đài và bắt đầu bóp tai, mũi, thậm chí vạch miệng cô dâu để kiểm tra. Kèm theo đó là dòng slogan: quyết định quan trọng cần thực hiện một cách kỹ lưỡng, ngụ ý so sánh việc mua xe cũ của Audi với việc lấy vợ.
Anh ơi, phải hạ cái phóng sự này đi, không làm sao nghe được. Cái video đang chạy, có nghe thấy tiếng kia đâu.
First, Madam Naomi Kichahara, thank you very much for your time.
Your suggestion for each woman, girl, or man and boy to do to address GBSS.
To address gender-based the sex selection, there are 3 areas that we need to look at. First, there exists the concept of some preference that is very much deeply rooted in Vietnamese society. So through communication, through education activities, we must address this issue of some preference so that the girls and boys are looked at equally. So that's the first thing. Second, GBSS happens because of the availability of technology. And although the policy and the legal framework in Vietnam bans the disclosure of the sex of the fetus, this is still happening through informal communication channels and medical facilities. So that has to be addressed. And lastly, GBSS happens because of the fertility limitation. And when people have only a limited chances of becoming pregnant, then of course people tend to prefer to go into the termination of pregnancy if the fetus is found to be a girl. So that aspect also needs to be addressed so that the people are able to choose the number and timing and spacing of having children in Vietnam.
And the second question is, what will be UNFPA support to Vietnam in the coming year to help Vietnam address the GBSS?
First and foremost, GBSS happens also because of the gender inequality. So the current policy and legal framework that Vietnam has in terms of promoting gender equality and in terms of promoting the value of women and girls, UNFPA will continue to provide support to the government agencies on this. And second, the data and the reporting mechanism and coordination mechanism, so national machinery to address the gender-based sex selection, this is also the second area that we will be supporting Vietnam to strengthen. And lastly, we will continue to provide support to the media and also the journalists to be able to report correctly on the issue of gender-based sex selection so that we can look at it in a comprehensive way. This is really happening under our current support of the country program of UNFPA to Vietnam. And then above all, men and boys have to be involved more. And then so we will be supporting the fatherhood program and to encourage men and boys to join us to finish this business of the gender-based sex selection.
Thank you so much for your sharing. Thưa quý vị, như những gì mà
Ladies and gentlemen, as Madam Naomi Kichahara just shared with us, in order to reduce gender equality and ending this situation, we need stronger coordination from the society. And as you are watching the live stream on fan page of VTV3, you are actually contributing something to promoting communication campaign on gender equality in Vietnam. Thank you very much for listening to Madam Naomi Kichahara. We will be back.
Tại nhiều gia đình Việt Nam, quan niệm con gái là con người ta, con trai mới có thể nối dõi tông đường, thờ cúng tổ tiên vẫn ăn sâu bám rễ trong suy nghĩ. Nếu không sinh được con trai, họ sẽ không nhận được sự tôn trọng của dòng họ làng xóm. Con gái sau này thường sẽ về ở nhà chồng khi đi lấy chồng, nên họ cũng lo lắng không có người chăm sóc khi về già, không có người thờ cúng khi qua đời. Tâm lý thích con trai khiến họ mong muốn có được một cậu con trai để nối dõi tông đường. Chính vì vậy họ bằng mọi cách để thực hiện như soi trứng, lọc tinh trùng và điều tiết chế độ ăn uống trước khi mang thai. Dù pháp luật Việt Nam nghiêm cấm chẩn đoán lựa chọn giới tính thai nhi bằng bất cứ biện pháp nào, nhưng họ vẫn có nhiều cách để biết được giới tính của đứa bé trong bụng mẹ. Do mỗi gia đình thường chỉ có từ 1 đến 2 con, nên nếu thai nhi là gái, nhiều cặp vợ chồng đã lựa chọn phá thai để mong đợi có bé trai cho lần sinh tiếp theo. Những bé gái đã mất tích cả trước khi được chào đời. Năm 2019, nếu so với tỷ số giới tính khi sinh theo quy luật sinh đẻ tự nhiên, thì Việt Nam đã thiếu khoảng 45.900 bé gái được ra đời. Cụ thể hơn, theo Tổng điều tra quốc gia về dân số và nhà ở năm 2019, cứ 100 bé gái sinh ra thì có tới 111,5 bé trai ra đời. Cao hơn hẳn quy luật tự nhiên là 105 đến 106 bé trai trên 100 bé gái. Việt Nam là một trong 3 nước châu Á có tỷ lệ mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh cao nhất sau Trung Quốc và Ấn Độ. Tình trạng này đã kéo dài nhiều năm kể từ năm 2004. Sẽ có tác động về vấn đề nhân khẩu học khi có tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Ví dụ như dự tính đến năm 2034, Việt Nam sẽ thừa 1,5 triệu nam giới tuổi từ 15 đến 49 tuổi và con số này sẽ tăng lên 2,5 triệu người vào năm 2059 nếu tình trạng mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không giảm. Theo xu hướng này, các nhà nhân khẩu học gọi chung là khủng hoảng hôn nhân khi nhiều nam giới sẽ khó tìm được bạn đời. Mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh không có nghĩa là vị thế của phụ nữ được nâng lên mà hoàn toàn ngược lại. Khi đó các em gái có thể sẽ phải kết hôn sớm hơn, tình trạng buôn bán phụ nữ, bạo lực với phụ nữ, tệ nạn mại dâm sẽ xảy ra nghiêm trọng hơn. Trong nhiều năm qua, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã rất quan tâm đến vấn đề này và đã có những chính sách và khung pháp lý để giảm mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Cụ thể, Chính phủ Việt Nam đã cấm chẩn đoán giới tính thai nhi. Theo Nghị định quy định xử phạt vi phạm hành chính trong lĩnh vực y tế, hành vi bói toán để xác định giới tính thai nhi, tuyên truyền phổ biến hoặc tư vấn để có được giới tính theo ý muốn đều bị phạt tiền từ 3 đến 5 triệu đồng. Trên thực tế, quy định này chưa thực sự phát huy hiệu quả, mức xử phạt cũng cần đích đáng hơn. Một số nước như Hàn Quốc đã có sự điều chỉnh về mất cân bằng giới tính khi sinh. Vấn đề tâm lý ưa thích con trai đã được giải quyết và Hàn Quốc đã thúc đẩy giá trị của các bé gái, bình đẳng giới và thúc đẩy quyền năng của phụ nữ. Truyền thông thay đổi hành vi các định kiến xã hội về giới hết sức cần thiết để chấm dứt tâm lý ưa thích con trai. Trong xã hội hiện đại tại Việt Nam ngày nay, ngày càng nhiều nam giới được tham gia các hoạt động xây dựng nếp sống mới trong gia đình. Họ trở thành hình mẫu nam giới tích cực về bình đẳng giới, xây dựng mối quan hệ lành mạnh và bình đẳng trong gia đình, không sử dụng bạo lực với phụ nữ và trẻ em. Bên cạnh đó, cần tăng cường giáo dục kiến thức về quyền của phụ nữ cho người dân rộng rãi hơn về việc phụ nữ có quyền thừa kế công bằng trong gia đình. Ngoài ra, cần tăng cường hệ thống bảo trợ xã hội cho người cao tuổi nhằm giảm nhu cầu sinh con trai để còn trông cậy tuổi già. Khi không còn nặng nề quan niệm phải sinh bằng được con trai, các cặp vợ chồng sẽ không còn.
On the stage, Mr. Phạm Vũ Hoàng, Deputy Director General of UNFPA, Madam Rachel Loken, Norwegian Ambassador to Vietnam, and they're going to be joined by Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam. They will chair the plenary discussion of this dialogue. I hope you are all seated. Now may I hand over to Mr. Huang to coordinate the discussion. First, on behalf of all panelists, I sincerely thank all participants and distinguished guests for joining us today, both online and offline. As you know, um, so we have quite limited time. At the beginning, we listened to 3 opening remarks from GOPFP, from Madame Great Lochen, Norwegian ambassador to Vietnam, and a speech by Madame Naomi Kitahara from UNFPA Vietnam. We have also listened to Mr. Nguyễn Xuân Trường from GOPFP to present on the result of implementing the program to control imbalance SIB in Vietnam and orientation for the next phase. The discussion by Madam Irfala Dewi, who is the gender specialist from Asia Pacific Regional Office of UNFPA, and the presentation by Madam Trần Bích Loan from Gender Equality Department of Molisa, and Madam Phạm Thị Thu Hương from Vietnam Farmers Union. They have shared with us about the fatherhood program. And we have listened to another presentation by Madame Vân Anh, the CISAGA director. And ladies and gentlemen, for both who are here and those who are joining us online, in order to have a very effective discussion, allow me to ask that when you make your speech, please focus on 3 things. First, please focus on the presentations that I just have recapped to you earlier. And then you should, if there's anything that's still unclear, something you want us to elaborate, please feel free to ask questions. That's the first focus. The second focus is that you can share your own experiences on practicing policies to ensure gender equality and to promote the roles of women and girls. The second focus. The third focus is on your recommendation. What can we do better to enhance intersectoral coordination? First, to contain imbalance of SIB and to return SIB to the natural level. So I'm wondering if you want anything to add, or you already have some question in mind. And Naomi and Madame Grace, do you have anything to add? And now I'm open the floor to questions. And so according to my list just sent to me, so attending the dialogue today, we have representatives from party commissions and also from ministries from central to local level, mostly on Zoom. We also have the participations of representatives from Hà Nội, Quảng Ninh, Bến Tre, Nghệ An, Hưng Yên, Vũng Tàu, and Bắc Giang, and other NGOs. So please, when you make your speech, please do focus on the 3 points that I just mentioned. And as a housekeeping note, please introduce yourself before you speak. Please. First, I wish to thank the organizing committee for inviting me today. And I thank speakers for providing lots of useful information. I have something to share with you. Please introduce yourself. I'm Phương, formerly from National Economic University. First, on the SIB, according to previous calculation, the natural level should be 106 or 105. But at the moment, due to nutritional change, demographic transition, and many other factors, is there some new research that confirm whether the natural level is actually 105 to 106? So I'm wondering if it's not the case, then whether we should really look back at the numbers such as 108 or 112, and to what extent the such ratios are really imbalanced. So again, I want to ask whether we should reconsider the natural level and whether the natural means 105 or 106 or actually higher. So I read some studies, and in Vietnam they divided the provinces into different groups according to their SIB. And I look at this report by UNFPA. I think the majority of those provinces with the highest SIB is actually in the Red River Delta, in the rural areas in particular. And there's another group in the Mekong River Delta. So we also need to have to break it down further to identify the region and groups of location where SIB is actually the highest, so that we can have the strong interventions in ways that are more tailored to their specific condition. For example, in the Red River Delta, the causes of imbalanced SIB may be culture, social norms, or the sun preference. But in the Mekong River Delta, I'm wondering whether the same set of causes apply. So who in the Mekong River Delta actually suffer from the same problems as in the Red River Delta, while we know that both regions have very different cultural traditions. I listened to Mrs. Hương talking about fatherhood program, the fatherhood program earlier. So I'm wondering, maybe the fatherhood program may work fine in Hanoi, but whether it will work the same way elsewhere. So it brings us to the questions of IEC. What kind of communication programs can we do across different regions, whether a single model can meet the needs and condition of different regions? We need further study on this aspect. Thank you very much. Thank you, Professor Phương from National University of Economics. Because the time is very limited, so may I collect all the question and comments, and then we can direct the question and comments to our speakers. We can group the question into categories so that our speaker can respond to them in a more concise way. Next question, we're going to take around 3 to 4 comments. So I have a couple of points. 5 minutes, maybe. Yeah, Mr. Huang, Madam Grace Lochen and Madam Naomi Kitahara. Mai Xuân Phương, Dr. Mai Xuân Phương from GOPFP So I'm lucky that I can participate in this dialogue. I'm grateful to previous presentation from different speakers providing lots of useful information for us who work in the population field. I'm from the Department of Communication of GOPFP actually, and we find your presentation very useful. I have a few comments. The first, I'm sincerely grateful to all the presentations because they provide a multi-dimensional perspective, and I'm particularly impressed by the presentation by Mrs. Vân Anh, a really a long-time friend of GOPFP. And last year, I was lucky to work with Farmers Union and the departments of gender equality of Mont Lisa to participate in the project at Bắc Giang and Vũng Tàu. So I appreciate what Vân Anh say. She said that amongst the many causes of GBSS, and I agree with the survey conducted by Saga and also by Viet Nam's Women's Union on the impact of domestic violence on GBV on women's lives. And the survey shows that in the last 3 years, because of COVID-19, GBV and DV account for 30% of all forms of violence in Vietnam. And the numbers of calls to hotline have increased substantially, particularly to the hotline by the Peace House, run by the Women's Union, and another one. So they receive a large numbers of calls. So, as Van Anh said, a key cause and trend cause of GBSS is the tradition of Confucianism and the son preference. But there's something else that I want you to elaborate. When I visit different localities, and as Van Anh said, there's a concern that it's not just men want son, but also the concern that women do not want to give birth to girls. So they are complementary. So this is something that we must intervene as well, not just into men to change the son preference, but also into women about whether or not it's desirable to have girls. So, as you know, this is actually the anniversary of the International Women's Day, and in 2 days we're going to have a National Congress of Women in Vietnam. So I think that for women, I think in Vietnam, in every state agencies, they have a commission for the progress of women. And in most cases, it's very often that they put a woman as the head of the commission for the progress of women. In Vietnam, when you have such a commission, in order to support women, you're supposed to put a man and let somebody of a decent position as the head of that commission. And sometimes the commission is just exists in a formal way without substantive function, and sometimes even if the head of the commission in an agency is a man, so when the International Women's Day or some other occasion when they want to honor women, the head of the commission only come to that event presenting bouquets of flowers to the women without doing anything. So basically, men stay out of that commission, although the commission is tasked with promoting the progress of women. But men in state agency, they participate minimally in the operation of such commissions. And I'm impressed by the remarks by UNFPA representative and the ambassador of Norway. Both of them emphasize the importance of IEC programs, both in terms of the contents and the forms of communication, and how to make communications relevant to local condition. And we also need to make sure that media practitioners or proponents of IEC program are also those who have gender knowledge, who are gender sensitive. And finally, my final point, I call for women to love themselves. During the COVID-19 pandemic, it may be another opportunity for you to really treasure yourself. So I have a poem that's from now. From now, live for yourself, whether you are strong or weak, as long as you can smile and live freely. Pains or not, it's up to you. Since now you must make sure that you are beautiful, whether it's rainy or sunny. Do not let other affect you, because youth is very short. And from now you must be happy to bury sad in the past. If anyone hurts you, you should forgive them, because later on you can live a peaceful life. And from now on, there's no need to feel sad about somebody. Be happy, be faster, otherwise you will miss the train of happiness. Thank you very much, Mr. Phương. And it's beautiful that he can read a poem that he composed himself, and showing the commitments of men to the happiness of women. So we are notified that there's a representative from Hưng Yên who wants to have a comment. From Hưng Yên, please. Dear Mr. Hoàng, GOPFP, dear leaders of international organizations, and dear representative from different locations. I'm the director of the population department of Hưng Yên province. Because the time is short, so building on the previous presentation, we wish to have a comments as follow. So I'm impressed by the presentation from the Farmers Union. They have many communication programs that are quite effective. However, as you know, in Hưng Yên, well, the SIB is still very high, and since 2016 we managed to control the goal, to control the growth of SIB under 0.4 percentage point. But however, we're still unable to reduce the SIB. We can only slow the pace of increase down. So my wish is that UNFPA and the Norwegian embassy can have us promote the fatherhood program in Hưng Yên, and we hope that perhaps if we can receive some kind of additional technical support from ministries of health or ministries of labor. So we look forward to receive further activities from the Farmers Union for UNFPA, Norwegian embassies, so that we can prolong the implementation of the fatherhood program and other similar model. We really want to reduce the SIB as soon as possible. Thank you, representative from Hưng Yên. So the time is almost up. So allow me to stop taking further comments. We have received 3 more questions sent to us via the chat box. One is from Vũng Tàu. Allow me to read. The question from Vũng Tàu is directed to the Norwegian ambassador. Could you elaborate on the plan of the Norwegian government in the coming years to support Vietnam to end GBSS? Another question from Bắc Giang, and the question is directed to Madam Naomi Kitahara, UNFPA Vietnam. Could you elaborate on UNFPA strategy in the future to deal with GBSS in Vietnam? And we receive another question from members of UNFPA Vietnam. The question is that we know that the government have set up the National Steering Committee on Population and Development. So MOH, could you elaborate on the mission and future plans of this steering committee? And the question is directed to Mr. Lương Quang Dang, who is the head of personnel department of GOPFP. So these are 3 questions that we have received from people joining both online and offline. Now, so these are 3 questions, and I will remind you that we have a question, Professor Phương from National University of Economics. She has 2 questions. So the first question is to what extent we should treat 105 and 106 as the levels of natural SIB. So why 105 and 106, and whether there should be any revision? And she also asked that GOPFP group provinces into 3 categories, and in the Red River Delta, SIB is very high. And the question is whether we should have kind of a universal or uniform approach when we launch communication campaign. And she asked that, for example, the fatherhood program, whether we should have adjustment when we implement the program in one area, and whether we should make it slightly different when we implement it in others in order to maximize effectiveness. Dr. Phương from GOPFP, but I think he has comments on the presentation by Madam Vân Anh, and he wants to discuss further the connection between GBV and GBSS. And he has a comment that we should look at women as well. How can we encourage women to rethink their kind of the impression that giving birth to a daughter is undesirable? So basically, Dr. Phương has comments rather than question. So the next question is from Hưng Yên. So it's not a question actually. They actually express the desire that support programs such as the fatherhood program can be sustained or extended in Hưng Yên so that the province can really reduce the SRB growth. Now, may I invite Dr. Xuân Trường from GOPFP to talk about how we group provinces together and what are the implications. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I thank Professor Phương from National Economic University about SRB. Allow me to be brief. In 2006, as you know, we first observe SRB being imbalanced, and in 2009, according to the census 2009, we noticed that SRB was on the rise, and for that reason we started dividing provinces into groups so that we can have more tailored approach. And at the time, we already documented high SRB in 10 provinces. And later on, we have more specific targets. And as I say, we have two phases. The first phase is to slow down, or at least to contain the growth in the first period. And now in the second period, our goal is to reduce SRB actually to the natural level. All of this has been specified in the 468 project. So the aim is that by 2020, we try to keep the growth of SRB within 4.0 percentage point. And now we managed to do that actually. We managed to contain that. And later on, we have the Vietnam population strategy and then the resolution number 21. So the new aim is that to keep SRB by 2030 under 109. So when we look back at the intervention we have done, as well as the progress of SRB intervention, as I told you earlier, even if we manage to control the growth rates of SRB in 2020, but the SRB remain very high. So in order to achieve a substantial reduction of SRB by 2030, we need a more tailored approach. Of course, we have specific guidelines for the entire country, which is below 109. But it's important to have a tailored approach. First, we need to divide provinces into different groups so that we can have more specific intervention in some particular groups. And also, we also divide the targets into two phases. By 2025, we seek to reduce SRB to below 111, and by 2030, we seek to drag it further to below 109. Dividing provinces into several groups, as I remind you, is simply for the matters of tailored policy. And so, for example, MOH, according to MOH, in 2020, we still have 6 provinces where SIB is higher than 115. So 6 provinces where SIB is still higher than 115, which is really serious imbalances. So we cannot do the same at these provinces in the same way we do at other provinces which are relatively lower SIB. So the project 468, as you know, provide the overall goal for the entire country. If you want to drag SIB to 109, you need to do that even for those who at the moment the SIB is above 115. And as you imagine, there are many other provinces where SIB is not equal to 115, but also still very high. And we see that the intervention for that reason should be very tailored and province specific. So for example, for those provinces who are in the range between 109 and 112, so maybe it's more feasible to intervene into these provinces, but we need additional measures for those who where SIB at the moment is 115. Because of the time is short, I'm unable to discuss in further details, and it doesn't mean that we give priority to some but not the other. But the point is that we need a tailored approach. Thank you, Mr. Chuang. Now, may I invite Madam Gretel Lotion, a Norwegian ambassador, to respond to the question.
Thank you. First of all, it has been very interesting to hear your comments and questions, and I think actually you are the best to know what to do. So and to address the GBSS issue in Vietnam, which I highlighted in my opening remarks, ownership, local ownership is key, and the comments coming from the audience here, both online and offline, underline the importance of that. So in terms of what Norway is doing is to address GBSS in Vietnam in the years to come. As you have been hearing today, we're working through UNFPA as a key partner, and we will continue to do that. But, you know, having an event like this is extremely important in terms of identifying and share experiences, what works and what does not work. So this is something extremely important. In addition to that, from my views, I'm reaching out to the Vietnamese media very often to address gender issues. And experience shows, actually, international experience shows that in order to address GBSS, it's very important to have a holistic and integrated approach in terms of promoting the rights and of girls and women in any society. That is actually the best way and the most effective way. But it's also important to underline that this is not just a women's or girls' issues. I'm very pleased to see men also actively participating, because it's so important to involve and mobilize fathers, sons, brothers in this issue. We have to deal with this together. So, and this is my experience now, as soon been 4 years in Vietnam, and I do see a keen interest also from the men's side in addressing this issue. And I also encourage women to deal with this very seriously, because often women, mothers, are the bearers of traditions. And not all traditions, as we have heard today, about some preferences, is not healthy traditions. So this is something we need to talk about at home, at school, at the workplace, with friends, families. And I have great hope in the youth of Vietnam. So in terms of targeted approaches, I really have great faith in the younger generation of Vietnam in changing attitudes and behavior. And I wish you all the best. I can sit up here being a good role model as a successful female leader. And I will continue to push this agenda in Vietnam, not just when I'm here, but when I'm back home in Norway, not just for Vietnam, but also in my own country. So together we are strong, and girls really need to shine. Thank you.
My thanks to the ambassador, very sincere and insightful. I thank you for extending your commitments. Thank you for extending your commitment to support Vietnam in promoting gender equality, particularly your emphasis on men, boys, and young people. Now, may I invite Madame Naumiki Chahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam. So the question is the strategy of UNFPA in the coming years to deal with GBSS in Vietnam.
Yeah. I grew up in 1970s in a very conservative part of Japan. And everybody told me I don't need to be educated because I was a girl. And then everybody said, except my parents, but everybody said that I don't need to go to the university because I was a girl. And they said, what do you do with that higher education? And I used to bring school reports, which is, by the way, perfect report, out of 1 to 5, almost all 5. So I was very proud of myself. I wanted to share the report with my family members, the relatives, so uncles, aunties, grandparents. They didn't even look at it. I have my little brother who was also bringing the school report. Then everybody was looking at his report, but not mine. I used to wonder, am I less important here? Am I not supposed to be existing here? And today, I just wanted to point out that Vietnamese girls don't need to feel that way. And we are all here to make a change so that the girls are valued as much as boys. So that's the first point that I wanted to make here. UNFPA, together with GSO and the Ministry of Health, produced monograph based on 2019 population census, the Professor Huang referred to. There it's important to understand that GBSS is happening not just by location, geographic location, but when we look at it, it is high among the kin ethnicity, it is high in highly educated people, it is high in urban areas, and it is high with high-income people. There we need to draw a conclusion in terms of what is happening. And I briefly mentioned in my opening remarks, there are 3 factors which are leading to gender-biased sex selection. First is some preference that we need to address through communication, and we need to address through strengthening the journalists and the media, and through innovative communication. Second one is the availability of technology. Yes, the GBSS is high in urban areas, high income, highly educated people, because they have resources to access reproductive technologies. And termination pregnancy based on the gender of the fetus and also disclosure of the sex of the fetus is prohibited in Vietnam by law. But people have informal channels to access those services. And that doesn't necessarily exclude the rural areas and also those households with less income, because once the technology become available, they may resort to the gender-based sex selection. So we need to talk about this, and we need to address this a bit more in a rigorous way in terms of gender-based sex selection. Third issue is fertility limitation. Let's face the reality. In Vietnam, we have only limited chances of becoming pregnant. And if people have limited chances of becoming pregnant, and then if the some preference is existing, then of course a lot of people, whether it's men or women, whether it's husband or wives, they tend to resort, or they are forced to resort to gender-based sex selection. So those things have to be addressed. So in terms of UNFPA support in coming years, our support, whether it's an education program, our support in terms of partnership with the journalists, in terms of the research and data collection, would be surrounding to address those three issues so that we can stop gender-based sex selection as soon as possible in Vietnam. And the census monograph is very clear about the depths of information and knowledge that we have accumulated over different countries in the world. And yes, the sex ratio at birth as a natural range of 105, 106, this is basically the science. And it's about biology. It's about reproduction. It's about combination of chromosomes between X and Y. And then also it's about an outcome that we are seeing in the different countries in the world. So it is a scientific conclusion. Whether it's a nutritional status changed or not, this is just the science, which really concludes that normal range of sex ratio at birth is 105, 106. And in Vietnam, we have 111.5, which is really high. So hopefully in today's dialogue session, each one of us can go back with the knowledge and discussions that we have had today, and also the passion and the will to address the issue of gender-biased selection, so that we can have really equitable society in Vietnam, which is really essential to achieve Sustainable Development Goals by 2030. I don't think Vietnam can achieve SDGs without gender equality. And this is essential. Without having the valuing of girls, without respecting the roles of women, we will not be able to achieve SDGs in Vietnam. So it is essential part of addressing it. And together, as Ambassador Gret mentioned, together and with solidarity, we can address this issue of gender-based selection. And I remain very hopeful. Thank you very much.
My thanks to Madam Naomi Kichahara, UNFPA representative to Vietnam. Building on your own personal stories, you showed us that it's important that girls and women take active actions, be stronger, be more active to master their own life as a way of achieving gender equality. She shared with us the strategy of UNFPA in Vietnam in the coming years, with intervention being focused on the key root causes of GBSS and Invalids and in Vietnam, she emphasized particularly the problem of decline fertility as a factor that deserves more attention. Now we have some time left. We may allow us to spend the remaining minutes to two more speakers. The first is Mrs. Hương from Vietnam Farmers Union to answer the question from the Hưng Yên. And there's another question from Professor Lan Phương. She asked that whether the fatherhood program should be flexibly designed, whether we should do it differently between Hanoi and other areas. Greetings again. About the question from Professor Phương, allow me to explain that in rural areas or in areas with a large numbers of staff from the Farmers Union, we have launched the fatherhood program. But in urban area, the fatherhood program has been launched not just by the Farmers Union, but we receive UNFPA financial support to launch this program via a series of partners. So, for example, we utilize the VOV, the Voice of Vietnam, and we communicate about this program via social media and also newspapers. And as Mrs. Luan explained, we also use poster painted on buses and taxis for men in urban areas to grasp those messages. So in urban area, we do it quite differently compared to in the rural context. So that might respond to Mrs. Phương. The second question directed to me, Mrs. Phương from GOPFP, and he said that programs on gender equality, and he noted that very often that when we launch this program, we only manage to get women involved. And from the experiences of the Farmers Union, particularly since 2012, particularly during activities funded by UNFPA, and we organized roughly 2,000 meetings and workshops and talk shows. And during these events, the events operated by Farmers Union, 80% are men. 80% are men, participants. So we launched these activities in 8,000 communes across 63 provinces. And so, Mr. Phương, please rest assured that we are doing something to fill the gap in our intervention programs when we seek to alleviate the son bias and promote gender equality. We do not involve only women. We will maximize our reach to get men involved both in rural area and in the urban context as an effort to address this problem. There's a question from Hưng Yên Population Department. So I thank Hưng Yên for your appreciation of the work being done in Hưng Yên by the Farmers Union when we promote the fatherhood program. And regarding your desire, your expectation to prolong this model in Hưng Yên, I acknowledge your proposal. I went discuss with the leaders of the farmers union and also with my colleague from UNFPA so that we can prolong this program in Hưng Yên and to pilot even more models of communication in Hưng Yên. At the earliest convenience, we will inform you as soon as possible. Thank you, Madam Phạm Thu Hương from the Farmers Union. In response to the question from Professor Phương from National University of Economics. So Madam Hương promised that the extension of the fatherhood program in Hưng Yên will be prolonged. So may I suggest that after I discuss with my two co-chairs, we aim to conclude in 10 minutes. We have a few minutes left, so I want to give 5 minutes to Mr. Lương Quang Đảng from GOPFP to respond to the question from UNFPA staff, and then we will consult, we will give the Ambassador Greater Loach and Madam Naomi to have the wrapping up. So we try to wrap up in 7 to 10 minutes only. My thanks to my colleague from UNFPA. So as you know, in January 2022, the PM issued the decision to set up the Steering Committee on Population and Development. So Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Đức Đam chaired the commission together with minister and vice ministers of different ministries, and ministers of health is the standing vice chair of the committee. So what is the mission of this committee? The committee advises the government on promoting key issues concerning population and development. When we talk about population and development, we talk about the resolution number 21 concerning the quality and structure of the population, how to make the population work in line with social economic development strategy. But now we need more concrete actions. So at the moment we are developing the terms of reference and terms of operation of the steering committee to be approved in March this year. And after that, after the terms of reference is approved, we will finalize the structure, and then we will need to organize a plenary meeting of the steering committee to assign duty to specific members, because each ministry must have specific duties, and that's what we need to consider very carefully. As Madam Ambassador mentioned, it's important to identify problems and identify who is capable of dealing with that problems. We plan to have very broad consultation with different development partners to learn from their experiences and recommendation as to what we should do to promote population and development. So we look forward to work with UNFPA, UN agencies, In the near future, we seek to organize a policy dialogue between the National Steering Committee on Population Development and UN agencies. So may I invite Dr. Đoàn Ngọc Xuân from Central Economic Commissions to share with us as well. Dear the chairs, so the time is very limited, and I will try to be very concise. There's a couple of things I want to add to the lessons that we have drawn from this workshop. I hope that we can have some more effective solutions to make the population work more effective. As you know, the party and the state of Vietnam attach great importance to population work from very early, and we have devised a series of solutions and policies. So Vietnam succeeded in containing the population growth rate to promote population quality. But at the same time, there are problems as well, and previous speakers already mentioned the many shortcomings from the perspective of population and development. And one of the key concerns at the moment has to do with population quality. So population should not be treated as a burden, it should be treated as a resource. And the resource should comprise men and women. And in order to ensure sustainable development, we need to ensure gender equality, at least in population. And you have provided a series of different recommendations. But one thing I want to emphasize, the reason why imbalanced SIB and GBSS remain prevalent has to do with the feasibility and implementability of legal regulations. The legal system still have something to be improved. The second course has to do with the level of education of the population. So, for example, you know that we have a ban on the disclosure of the sex of the fetus, but we're unable to enforce that ban effectively. We have technology, and technology is supposed to make the population quality better, but we are unable to prevent the abuse of technology for negative purposes. So in terms of our communication activities, I think communication activity has been a bright point in our efforts to address the problem, but media also create problem as well. For example, sometimes when we produce some media products, we want to raise awareness about gender equality, but actually the media we produce reinforces gender inequality prejudices. So I have a few recommendations. The first is that population and development, and we ask why there's still a gap between policy and reality. So we need to improve the legal system. When the legal system is effective enough, the enforcement of law is effective enough, that is the best solution. Second, I also think we need to change the way population work is governed at the national level. So for example, we need to change the term family planning. In the past, we focus on family planning, but now we need to shift the focus to population and development. We cannot let family planning be a central focus anymore. And third, technological progresses should be seen as a tool that we can utilize for population and development. And finally, technology should be used in ways that create equality. And another recommendation is that communication should be guided, should be tailored to specific purposes. And I think we have the representative from UNFPA and the ambassador of Norway. They have said so. We need to renovate the way we do IEC campaigns. Another recommendation is that there's two emerging issues. The first is that we need to change the mindset about how we promote gender equality. So we cannot just tell people to avoid doing something as a matter of responsibility and sanction. We need to encourage them to think of behavioral change as something that's beneficial to them as well. And we need to make sure that we change the mindsets of policymakers so that they know that changing policy, having better population policy is beneficial to the government, not just a responsibility that they have to do. And thank you very much. Wish you good health and best wishes of the International Women's Day. So the International Women's Day is an important day for men as well, I think. Thank you very much. My thanks to Mr. Lương Quang Dang, GOPFP, and recommendation very spot on from Dr. Xuân, Central Economic Commission. He raises a series of recommendations that contribute to the promotion of gender equality, particularly from the perspective of legal system, IEC, and governance in Vietnam. I thank you very much for your call for renovating IEC and policy on this matter. So, ladies and gentlemen, today we gather here with we have the president from the Norwegian embassies and UNFPA Vietnam. I know that many of you still want to say something, but after discussion with the co-chair, I think we are much behind schedule. So before I wrap up, may I ask the ambassador and the representative whether if you want to add anything to conclude the event.
Thank you. I will be very short. We all know changing attitudes and behavior, it's no quick fix. It takes long time. We also know, which has been addressed today, the importance of the media, both in a negative way but also positively. Let me just come up with a proposal and about why in Vietnam, why don't you create a popular TV drama to address GBSS? I know Vietnamese people, you love popular TV dramas. So get your best script players, your best actors involved and create this TV drama. We all know from other countries this has been a very effective tool in terms of changing attitudes in society. Thank you.
Just briefly, I just wanted to thank the Ministry of Health and then other ministries as well as the provincial participants. We have a very good turnout today to talk about the GBSS. So I would like to extend our sincere appreciations to participation today. Everybody here physically present as well. And the bottom of it is that it's important that we stick to what Vietnam signed up to in terms of international tools and principles and conferences, and that gives a lot of pointers for us to use to address the issue of GBSS. One of the things that I really love being in Vietnam is that we're able to see lotus flowers everywhere, and this is my favorite flowers. You know the lotus flowers? It's growing in dirty water, muddy water, dark. But then from that darkness, beautiful flowers bloom, pink, white, and then we also plant green color. And this is beautiful. So today we might have discussed a lot of negative side of the society that we need to address, but together we can actually bring about that lotus flower. And this is what we are aiming at as an objective of the meeting today. So thank you very much for your participation, and we will continue to address the issue of GBSS. Thank you, Chair.
My sincere thanks to the ambassador and Madam Representative for their beautiful words on thank you, Naomi, for the beautiful words on the Vietnamese people and culture. So I actually want more time for discussion so that we can listen to more of your reflection, but the time is up. So allow me to wrap up the dialogue. Allow me to summarize the key points that have been raised so that we have an overview of what we have discussed. So until this moment, which is 12:35, we have covered all the items in the agenda. We have listened to opening remarks from GOPFP, from the Norwegian ambassador to Vietnam and the representative of UNFPA. The opening remarks affirms that today's dialogue is an opportunity to share international experiences as well as from different parts of Vietnam on how to contain imbalance SRB and solution and intervention to address GBSS with a focus on IEC and the participation of men. The opening remarks also share the strategies currently being implemented by UNFPA to address GBSS and related harmful practices in Asia, and the Norwegian ambassador also shared with us the global program of Norway focusing on 3 solutions, on data collection, on SRB, and renovating the legal system in Vietnam, and transforming the workplace and enhancing the role of the media. So the opening remarks call for action when Vietnam is the country with the 3rd highest SRB in Asia, only after China and India. We listened to Dr. Chuang from GOPFP on the results of implementation of the project to contain imbalance SRB in Vietnam. the presentation from the UNFPA experts on gender from Asia Pacific region, Upala Dewi, sharing on social norms, the way we value women and girls, and the impact of the pandemic and war on the disruption of services and support to women and girls. She also shared with us the possible solutions to improve our efforts, for example, the tools for data collection and monitoring, as well as a possible intervention to enhance the role of women and girls. She also emphasized intersectoral cooperation as a solution. The next presentation by Madam Trần Thị Bích Loan from Molisa about the promulgation of key strategy on gender equality of the government. Mrs. Loan talked about the cooperation between Molisa and MOH in such field as research and communication, and treating it as a key example of how intersectoral cooperation can bring about important changes, and the humane aspect of state policy. She also shared with us the communication campaign jointly operated by Molisa and Viet Nam Farmers Union. Mrs. Loan also emphasized that in order to address imbalanced SAB in Vietnam, we must pay attention particularly to intersectoral cooperation, and this should be a standard of all government agencies in their operation. We listened to the presentation by Madame Hương from the Farmers Union with a video clip about the fatherhood program, 25 model attracting 900 members of the Farmers Union, and Madame Hương provides us with 10 lessons learned from this model. And there's one key lesson, which is that this is not just about doing a project. The commitment should be extended over a long period of time, and the government of Vietnam should provide additional budget to prolong this project with technical support from UNFPA for a long time, and it should become a long-term sustained intervention of the Farmers Union. The next presentation by Madame Vân Anh from Saga, emphasizing the need on having a more sensitive approach in our media items. How can we change the media system in order to have more gender sensitive approach? So we listen to the perspective from a local NGO, and then we have a discussion featuring 6 questions and answers. The question and answers come from both people joining us here and those online. We have the responses from the ambassador and UNFPA representative. So in each section we have taken notes of your comments and contribution. So by this moment we have had a very successful dialogue, and we sincerely thank the recommendation by Madam Ambassador from Norwegian Embassy. She said that this is not simply a dialogue, a one-off dialogue. This may be the beginning of a long-term efforts. For example, we may continue with TV dramas on GBSS in Vietnam, in Vietnamese television. So this dialogue has gathered comments and contribution from different perspectives, NGOs, UN agencies, embassies of Norway to Vietnam, and Vietnamese government agency. So although this is the end of the dialogue, but it's the beginning of long-term cooperation between government agencies, international organizations, NGOs in Vietnam, so that we can join hands to bring SIB in Vietnam to 109 in 2030 and to the natural level as identified by the Vietnam population strategy. And once again, on behalf of GOPFP, I sincerely thank the President and the recommendations shared by our distinguished guests. We hope that in the coming time, we must commit that in order to control SIB in Vietnam, imbalance SIB, we must take more action. We need a joint efforts of everyone. Once again, on behalf of GOPFP and my co-chairs, I wish all of you good health and success. My thanks to Mr. Huang and the co-chairs for chairing the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, the dialogue on addressing GBSS has come to an end. We invite you to stay with us for lunch in the next room. Before we conclude, I wish to thank Norwegian Embassy, UNFPA Vietnam, GOPFP, Molisa Farmers Union, and Quảng Bình, Cà Mau, Vũng Tàu, Bắc Giang, Sisaga population departments in Hanoi, Bắc Giang, Hưng Yên, Nghệ An, Bến Tre, and Vũng Tàu, and all of you for joining us both online and offline. Once again, we wish to thank media agencies, and I hope that after this dialogue, you can together share the message that stop son preference and girls deserve to shine. Please proceed to the front.